I don't think it's very polite to make other people feel stupid.
Oh?
I guess an O is all we're going to have here. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Cheap Seat Critics podcast. Today, we're covering Field of Dreams for our baseball season. With me today, we have...
Hello, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, a geeky writer.
I'm Corson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And if you look up Cheap Seat Critics podcast on any forum, you can probably find us with our socials connected to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're over on LetterBox. We got Rumble. We got YouTube for visual side of things. We're out there. Like, comment, whatever you're choosing. Sure.
Couldn't have said it any better myself.
I gotta differ it up because some people get real close to just mouthing the words along with me.
Throwing them all off with that.
I'm giving you a curveball. Ha ha ha.
But
You said the baseball thing.
I did. So yeah, Field of Dreams is what we're covering today. A little more of a serious out of what we've covered so far with Sandlot and League of Their Own. We'll begin with histories. Let's start with the one who probably has a lot to talk about, Crimson.
Sure. First, I will say, I don't know if this is more serious than League of Their Own. I think League of Their Own's more serious. But towards my history, yeah, this is a film I've heard of before, never seen. I knew it was baseball related. And that is the basics. That is my history. It's so deep and vast that it's wonderful. Mostly blind.
Alrighty, writer.
It's kind of a theme for this season for me, thus far anyway. I've seen bits of this film before, completely out of context. So this is my first time, I guess, watching it all in context, or if I have seen it all before, I don't remember it. So, yeah, that's my history. Essentially another fresh watcher.
Okay. And then with myself, not too far off, I guess. I would guess this is either the third or fourth time I've seen this film. I think the first time I saw it, I was probably 14 or 15 years old. Yeah. I will say, I guess a little history for it. This is the first time watching this movie that I've cried. I haven't cried to my memory in the past times I've seen it.
What makes you think it changed?
My experience and age.
He's getting older.
Getting older. I'm connecting to more things that little Sprinks couldn't comprehend.
Or Little Sprinks. I had no idea.
Little Sprinks, he's dead. He's out of here.
Yeah.
Well, he's playing baseball somewhere.
Every waking minute, younger Sprinks dies. So, sorry for that morbid thought. Got fact here, as I normally do. We got, again, take these with a grain of salt. Found them on the internet. Who knows how true or false they could be. We have initial release date of April 21st, 1989. Its runtime being 1 hour and 47 minutes. Had a budget of 15 million USD with a returning box office of 84.4 million USD. It has a rating of PG. Its genre is listed as drama, family, sports, and fantasy. And it's directed by Phil Alden Robinson, known for other works such as Sneakers and The Sum of All Fears.
Okay, so his biggest property then.
Yes. I don't think it was a fact I wrote down, but there was something about this was a dream project of Robinson to create, but over the course of it became a nightmare, and he took a break from doing films afterwards.
A dream, you say?
Yeah. I didn't write that one down, but I think that's one I read. So I have some fun facts here. So, you may know that Kevin Costner has a country rock band named Kevin Costner and the Modern West.
No.
What you may not know is that the band has a song called When We Get Home to Iowa, It was inspired by Costner's time shooting the film. While the track has yet to make one of the albums, there is a live version that exists.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that.
That's funny.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I didn't know he had a band.
Yeah, I'll just come right out and say it and be upfront with this, since we're doing this for the podcast only. I'm actually not a big Kevin Costner fan, so I wouldn't really know anything about him.
Gasp! Wow. Ryder, do you have a favorite Kevin Costner film?
Probably it would be For the Love of the Game.
Okay. Guess since we're on this, Crimson, you got a favorite Kevin Costner film?
Oh boy, do I?
Well, I
Let
feel
me
like
just run through my Rolodex in my head real quick.
Two different questions. Like favorite film he's a part of, or favorite. I don't know how to word this. The whole objective subjective thing. Like, I guess just a both. I'll go with a both.
I'd say Man of Steel.
Okay.
Papa Tornado, you know.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
It's true. He worked really hard to get it.
Yeah.
Hold on. Hand out. Let me do a Jurassic World here. Stay.
Yeah, and Superman listened for some fucking reason.
Oh, we gotta reel it back, folks. We're not covering Man of Steel today. Mine, subjectively most enjoyable would be Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I think objectively best film he's done is Dance with the Wolves.
Haven't seen either of those.
I think I remember seeing Prince of
Well,
Thieves.
Dance with the Wolves.
I don't remember
4.5 hours.
I don't remember Prince of Thieves, so
4.5
hours. I do remember parts of it, but I haven't seen that in so long that I can't really consider it for a rating. And then Dance of Wolves, I have not seen, but if I had seen it, it would probably be my choice for Kevin Costner roles.
I think that's Kevin Costner's dream film, like he did. I think he directed it and so much time and work into it. So, anywho, little things on that, what we feel about the actor. Back to the fun facts. The field may look perfect when the White Sox and the Yankees step onto it, but it took a little movie magic when they shot the film. The production crew used crushed red brick on the infield and even had to paint the grass with vegetable dye and latex turf paint to hide brown patches.
That's effort right
Okay.
there. I wouldn't notice in this film, so I think they did a good job.
I agree. I did not catch any field differences to the eye. Then again, it's a '89 film, so the quality isn't really 4K to be able to pick up. Next one I have here. Somehow, no one knows who played the famous unseen voice that tells Ray, if you build it, he will come. Some believe it's Costner, and others think it was Ray Liotta, who played Shoeless Joe Jackson. Kinsella said he was told it's actor Ed Harris, the husband of Amy Madigan, who played Annie Kinsella.
How is that something that is not solidified? Interesting.
No.
Yeah.
It's still a big mystery to the film.
You just brought a very funny image to my head of the director doing it himself, and he's just hiding in a fucking box so no one can hear him do it.
Could be. It could be Phil Alden Robinson. I don't know. Next fact I have here. If you ever thought that Ray believes the voice a little too quickly, well, director Phil Alden Robinson initially agreed. In the first cut of the film, there's a scene where Ray visits a hearing specialist. The scene was then cut from the final version.
Okay. Well, I would argue that it was quick. I don't know if the hearing doctor would be better. I think like a psychiatrist or something.
Yeah, I think a psychiatrist would have sold that a little bit more, because the hearing doctor's a little weird.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, he's the only one hearing something.
Yeah.
So
They play with time a little bit
believe
as well, so we don't know how much he's hearing the voice, but we only see 2 instances really for it.
Before he commits to listening.
Next one I have here. You won't be able to see them, but Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are some of the extras in attendance for the game at Fenway Park. Years later, while working on the Sum of All Fears film together, Affleck allegedly told Robinson, "Nice working with you again." After Robinson looked confused, Affleck explained the connection.
That's kind of funny.
Is that one of Affleck's first films then?
If he was an extra in it, probably. In 89?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was very young then, so yeah, it probably would have been one of his first films.
And lastly, I have here, this is not found off the internet as a fact. I fairly recently met up with my uncle for a visit and was curious. He was curious what was coming up for our podcast coverage. And when I told him Field of Dreams was coming up, he informed me that it's a perfect first date question to ask the other what they think of the film. He informed me if they're a big fan of the movie, it's a red flag. Supposedly, there's a theory, and this is not coming from my uncle or mentioned by him, that the baseball players in the field is more on the side of devilish hell than heavenly heaven.
Well, yeah, they're stuck on Earth.
They're not in heaven. Even ask.
Yeah. So that is all the facts I have.
Sweet.
All right.
Today's structure will be popcorn, so we can jump anywhere we'd like in the movie. Even though that is being said, I am sure it will mostly go linear, but it's up for anyone to choose. We will begin with selfishly myself, because I don't think
How freaking selfish.
Yeah, I don't think the host usually always chooses themselves to begin with. They usually go to someone else.
It's
I'm
rare.
changing the play of the game. I'm actually going to start at the very beginning. Funny enough, seeing that this movie was composed by James Horner.
That explains a lot. Okay.
You might recognize James Horner from such things as Titanic, American Tail, Legends of the Fall, Avatar, the Blue People one, the James Cameron, Troy, Apollo 13, Braveheart, Casper, Willow, a lot of things. However, in this one, I did not hear many pan flutes, which he seems to be a big fan of.
The soundtrack is very toned down for this one.
Yes, it's very mild.
Which is probably for the best, I think. I think it's to the film's strength.
Except, however, it did meet the quota of having a jazzy baseball piece.
Yeah, that was the important bit.
I was looking for that. I actually think I wrote that down in my notes somewhere.
That is the timestamp in our React stamps. That is my timestamp for it. One of them.
Sure. Well, with that, I guess, Ryder, you can go ahead with the next point.
All right.
Actually, sorry. Before that, I had a question pertaining to Sparks' point, actually. You brought up the lack of a particular instrument a composer is known for.
We're having a turning red situation.
Exactly. So, is it the same issue you had in Turning Red? With the lack of horns?
It is as I've learned, it is a subjective disliking.
So, did you have this subjective disliking in this?
Partially, yes, I did. I was expecting pan flutes, and there were none.
Okay. Answers my question. Sorry, Ryder, continue.
All right, I'm going to start at the beginning. The narration, very simple. Go through the history. It's builds the love story without being overt about it. Pretty much, it just builds all the general knowledge that we have for our main character Ray, and also we get the start of his history with his father. He doesn't really touch on it directly, but he definitely hints at it. It's like, and we, I think he said something to the effects of the lines of like they fought and then he just walked out, or they just, they both got sick of fighting, so he left. Something to that effect. And yeah, I quite liked it. They rooted for different teams growing up. That's not an uncommon thing to do when you're young and you want to be different from your dad. You find a different sports team to root for. That's kind of a normal thing. And I think it was very, very efficient use of establishing the main character. I quite liked it, and establishing the side characters too, because we get a sense of who Annie is just by virtue of the fact they met in the '60s, which is set up for things that Annie will do later.
Yeah, I'm conflicted on the start of this film because I know it's pretty common in the early '90s to have this like info dump in the beginning of films, and we still have them, and they were before that. But I feel connected to the '90s. That was pretty commonplace. I feel like there was way too much of an info dump in the beginning of this.
It did go.
It was almost 4 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it might have gone on for a little
just
too
exposition
long.
dumping.
I was gonna. This kind of was my follow up question. Did you think it went on a little too long? Because
Yes.
I'm kind of inclining towards that it went on for too long. I agree that a lot of information was useful. I think I would have probably shortened a little bit of the. Well, you need the baseball stuff? I don't know what I would cut of it.
Well, the whole Red Sox cheating thing and that whole history, that's already repeated in the film. I don't think we needed it in the beginning.
Oh yeah, he tells that to his daughter, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's repeated information. We don't need it in the opening.
Yeah, that might have been better left to something to contextual situation where he's telling his daughter stories, because that would have been fine.
I agree that could have been cut out. Talk with the daughter. I think the talk of him and his experience with the '60s, however, should remain.
Yeah, no, I can't really cut the '60s stuff because that's helps relationship build for his wife Annie and why he is the way he is and why Annie is the way she is. So I can't really divorce myself from that either. So that one needs to stay because it also sets up for when they meet Terrence later on too. So,
however, I am on the side that yes, it does. It's lengthy, feels lengthy, but I think it counters with it really gets the film moving fast to hearing the voice. To get to like a purpose plot. It's not like a half hour into the film before something starts.
Yeah, it starts immediately. So I guess that does help. I think we could trim the narration a little bit, and if they still want the speedy start, they can go for it. This is definitely personal preference. I think I would prefer today. With him and his family before he goes out at night and hears the voice. Just to kind of get a sense of what his normal life is like before it's about to get all fucking changed.
A baseline.
Yeah.
Because it was very quick. Immediately getting into the voices.
Yeah. I don't know if I can say that's a problem because we get the info dump and then we just jump right into the plot of where everything's changing. But I would have liked a baseline. So I could be talking to it being an objective problem, but it's definitely a subjective thing for me.
Would you like if it was just an added scene to make the film like 10 minutes longer?
I don't even think you need 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Maybe I could work with like 2 or 3 minutes. Just him having dinner with his family, then they go out into the field to do like their final activities for the day, or something to that effect. I think I just wanted a baseline before we jumped right in.
He could be watching old cassette tapes, VHS tapes of old games that his father recorded and was watching them with his family, and then that's how he gets to talking about his dad and stuff.
Or that's how he avoids talking about his dad because he's not ready to do that,
Well, yeah, just the sprinkle of the father stuff.
Yeah,
not to front load it.
Okay.
Because right off the bat, we're like, is this guy crazy? What's going on here?
I mean,
we don't really get to see normal Ray.
Was it the line is like, until he heard the voice, he's never done a crazy thing in his life. Is what he says in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was his problem with his dad, seeing his dad being safe and not achieving anything, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I really love that scene later on, but obviously that's separate from this right now.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, Crimson, but I think it's still countered with picking up the pace of how fast the movie starts.
Yeah. Okay. Because the narration is too long, I think I figured out. I guess my objective is because the narration is too long. I like that we just jump right into the plot. However, if the narration wasn't as long, I think I would have then liked a baseline scene before we jumped into the plot, if that makes sense. Because I think those kind of go hand in hand for me. So,
Okay.
No,
That's a good point to make, I'll say. A lot of thought.
It's interesting. Do we? I don't think there's an answer, but I want your thoughts. What started this? What sparked the voices?
Oh.
Oh, you were asking what we think the voice actually is?
No. What started it? Well, why didn't this happen 10 years earlier to Ray or something? Why did it just start that day in the cornfield? They had the farm for years at this point, I believe.
I think it has to do with his funds. It's a call onto the
I think
faith.
I think it's between. They've had the farm for 3 or 4 years. Because their baby is born just before they buy the farm in the narration, and she looks to be. How old is she supposed to be in this?
Karen?
Karen.
Yeah.
That would be my baseline. Is to when they bought the farm. Is how old is she? Because they would have bought the farm to kind of raise her in.
Let's see. They got married in 1974. They made a joke with one of the baseball players saying he hasn't smoked since the 70s, or 1970, which was 18 years ago.
18 years.
So it's 1988 is when this takes place. So we just don't know when Karen was born in relation to when they got married.
She looks to be about 9 or 10.
Okay.
Maybe 8?
She's younger than 14.
Yeah.
That's the definitive answer.
All right.
Going with the math here.
I'm going to split the difference.
I'd say probably 10, though.
Okay. Then, yeah, they would have the farm for 10 years. It might just be that the voice, what sparked the voices might just be the fact that his life is now trending back towards normalcy. Because he lived a crazy, wacky life up at that point. They would have been struggling to get their farm going. They got it going. They would have been struggling to raise their child, but now she's 10 years old, which means she's starting to learn to take care of herself. So it's less worry that you're placing on her. It might be that the lack of outside pressures has finally freed up, quote unquote, his time to hear the voice. Maybe. Because like you said, there's no definitive answer, but that would be my theory.
Crimson, what do you think started the voice?
I think it's just arbitrary. Good theories, but I think it's arbitrary.
Wait, you're asking us what? Okay, so then I misunderstood the question. Are you asking that it's just what its relation to the?
I don't think
within the context of the story or the context of objectivity.
No, I mean, since there's no answer, I was just curious your explanations. I personally think there isn't any thought that was put into why it started.
Oh, then yes, I'd agree. That would be my objective choice. That's the objective assessment I would take away from it. It is arbitrary.
Okay.
I thought you were asking for my headcanon. Sorry. Spring some.
I mean, it was a dual question.
Yeah.
I did want to know workarounds as well, so that works.
Springs, I'm assuming you have answers to that as well.
Like a legitimate answer? No.
No, like what's your headcanon as to why it started and possibly your objective interpretation, if you have either one. He's looking for both.
I don't know how to differentiate between either. I just have the one that I see for the film.
You had the theory that he was financially sound and was in a good place.
And
do you think that's actually what they were going for, or not?
I do think that's because the brother, God, what's the brother's name?
Mark?
Beard boy. Mark?
double checking. I
Might
think
be
it
Mark,
is.
but he's always in the
Yeah, it's Mark.
sidelines talking and like you got to sell the farm. The field's a dumb idea. You got to, you're gonna go bankrupt. You're out of money, and
He's not
Ray's
really.
constantly
Sorry.
he's putting his faith into the ball, into the baseball field, and going on this wild adventure across country and driving around and listening to a voice in his head and all these things that are occurring. Him and his wife having the same dream. Terrence Mann just saying things that also relate to what happens to Ray. So it's more than just him. It's a bigger picture, giving him more belief into it. And I think it's just a big. It's like knowing the arc. Somewhat, I see. Like it's like you got to do this mission, but no one's around to believe you to do the mission, but you still do the mission anyway. Because something is going to occur, something's going to happen, and people are like, you're wasting all your money and resources, you're spending all the time making an arc out of wood when really you should be helping your family, and something like that. Now, is it the whole question of like, is this heaven, could go into the religious aspect of like, is this a test of God onto Ray? And it could be, which also goes into a slight thing I have on the color theory a bit, because Ray wears a lot of white throughout the whole film, and I don't know if that's to represent like an angel of sorts. So.
Okay. Well, the Mark thing only happens because the voice happens in the first place.
Yeah, the financial situation isn't brought up until that point because it causes that. I had thoughts on that, but it all went away. Never mind.
That's fine.
Like a voice in the wind.
Leaf in the wind.
Well, I guess a question to that then is like, how long would the voice would have gone? Like, what if Ray just continually ignored it?
Well, we don't really know. That's kind of what I was seeing. We kind of
depends on what the motives are of the voice.
Yeah, we kind of see that, like, in theory, 2 days went by. That's kind of what we see in the film. But there could have been a week there, maybe 2, where it was just constantly pressuring him whenever he was in that particular part of the field. Ow.
Well, it did get him when he was alone.
Ish.
Yeah, ish.
He did yell to them, "Did you hear that?" So
yeah,
they were within proximity. It's weird because she gets visions, Annie gets a dream, so why doesn't she also get the voice? Because I just kept writing man in the notes. What was his first name? Terrence. Yeah, because Terrence was also getting the voice, so why didn't Annie get a voice? She just got a dream. So I don't really understand.
It feels like there's no, if the best way to explain this away is that it's just a religion thing, or it's just like an angel talking to him, as the voice of God, that sort of thing. And the voice and whatever it's doing is only doing just enough to convince other characters to help them along on this journey. If that makes sense. So it's very, very...
Annie's not out there giving a hand to make the field or do a bunch of things. She's just there to help cement Ray to keep going.
Yeah. And then obviously she can enjoy the game too because she can see the players and stuff like that. So she gets enough to know what's going on fully. It's... man, this is getting to some of my broader points. The plot is a very, very contrived. So it's not necessarily a plot hole, but it's definitely very much driven by the fact of all these smaller conveniences that aren't really technically conveniences, if that makes sense. It's very much contrived, going from like one thing to the next thing, and Terrence heard the voice too. Suddenly, it's kind of a reveal, and then Annie having a dream because she was adamant about him not going until he brings up the field that he was supposed to play on, and she describes it, and then they talk about their shared dream, or they both had the same dream of where he was. So,
but it's all focused on Ray.
Yeah, like it feels like it revolves around Ray, but the others are also susceptible and are given elements of knowledge in order to help push Ray along in his story. That's why I'm comfortable saying that the plot itself is contrived. It's clearly the intention. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, and hopefully that will be determined through like this podcast. Hey.
Well, it's quite insane how much this world bends around Ray, because the very end, when you see the trail of cars, over 100 cars, uh, the voice or God or whatever is shaping the events here um, changed those people's lives. It pushed them to this field. They could have done anything with their days, their night. They went here because some outside force is like, hey, you should watch this baseball game so this guy can have time with his dead dad. Everything's getting bent around for Ray for some arbitrary reason.
Ooh, I think Ray can qualify for Gary Stu.
Quite possibly. Everything works out for him.
I think there's only one rescinding qualification that he still would check most of the boxes, but I have to think about that now.
Yeah.
So when Ray comes to a blockade of confusion or unknown, the voice or being goes through someone else to get him back on his path rather than through Ray.
Or he puts him out of time.
Well, yeah, but that solves Ray's current dilemma.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, he's never like a month out of like, I don't understand the riddle that's being given to me, because it's through the use of someone else to help.
If it's there, it's not conveyed in the film.
Yeah,
I would like that to be there.
I mean, there's
there's
kind of one instance, I guess, kind of with that is he builds the field and then he like waits, could be a month, like it goes through Christmas, and it's covered in snow and nothing happens.
It's kind of implied that he, was just waiting for it to take shape or whatever. That's the only time skip, but again, that's not really pushing the plot along, and that's just them choosing to like write that out because it's not really important to the story. If that makes sense.
Unless you want to see it as that, funny enough, it's like, oh, it wasn't during Christmas or anything because that's not close enough to baseball season. So it waited.
He built it in the summer, I would guess.
I mean, they actually go see a baseball game, so it would have to be.
They do
during the season.
Probably be in spring. I guess that's a good slight reason to timeline.
I mean, they didn't have to show the whole Christmas thing. They could have just started during baseball season.
Yeah, the presumption is that he like how I read that scene is because I didn't really have anything else. Is I just assumed that was a time skip of like a year or something.
Oh, a year.
I did. I assumed it was a time skip for about a year because that's usually how you convey. I usually, whenever I see like quick Christmas things like that, I always assume that's just to convey that they waited a year because it's just a way to show that the year's ending. Pretty much, it's a very quick way to show the audience that the year's ending or it's at the end of the year. So that's just how I interpreted it. It could be less than that.
Oh wow!
But
all right, I interpreted it as maybe 2 months. 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, that's kind of how I read it, but we don't really know where the movie starts.
No, that's true. Interesting.
Yeah.
Good popcorn question. I'll say that. It's all over the place.
It is. Just the whole car bit at the end bugs me so much. It's the word doesn't go out. That they don't tell people things. It's the voice that pushed all these people here.
Crimson people will come.
Yeah.
And they don't know about parking because there is no parking.
There's no parking. There's no stands for them to quote unquote watch the game.
There's no physical tickets to buy.
No, not yet. Well, wasn't it brought up like they'll just come to your front door and give you $20?
No, you could just charge them.
Yeah. Is this Bean making like drones?
The Supreme Intelligence.
Empty-minded,
just,
like. Yeah, it's just like, hey Ray, you bet the field. This is all for the White Sox Or Red Sox.
It feels
What is
kind of hive
White
mindy,
Sox.
I suppose.
Yeah, the White Sox. It's like, this is all for the White Sox, Ray. Thanks for doing this for them, and because of that, I'm gonna give 300 plus people mind control to give you money. They'll wake up tomorrow and not know what happened.
That would be worse.
It's not even. They're not
Would
even
you
going to
say
see a
everyone in
game.
those? Yeah, everyone in those cars, are they baseball fans?
They're going there just to see him play catch with his dad. Because
Well, the White Sox
Joe
come back
said,
out.
The White Sox
Joe
left.
said,
That's the
we'll
problem.
see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, he said we'll play again tomorrow.
Well, what
So
about
what's
the other
everyone
team?
doing? Just sitting there all night till they
I
play?
mean, actually, I'd be okay with
They all
that.
left in the
I
day.
actually would be okay with that because people do camp outs and road outs all the time in front of big stadiums for teams and stuff like that. So maybe that's what they
These
plan to
people
do.
don't even know what they're here
Stories.
for.
No, who knows? Like I said, they don't know why.
That is true. We only know the story of the voice through Ray.
I have to
Everyone
clarify.
else could have their own story of voices.
I have to clarify. This is using Terrence's speech here. He's like, they won't know why they're there, but they're gonna come and just to enjoy themselves, to want to experience this. So, to be fair, included in that is that all those people are just showing up and just they could throw out some tents, start having a cookout, and just doing a bunch of like the normal fan stuff you do before games for the big fans. So
That's true.
I
but the
guess that
voice of
would
I don't know why they're there could differentiate into two, at least to me, two different meanings. Could be A, they haven't a clue. They just showed up. It also could be they heard a voice that said, come to this place of Iowa, there'll be a field. You don't know why you're coming here for what reason, but they have more details to be present. So it's not as brainless thought to it.
I still agree it's contrived, Crimson. It's just I agree. I know where you're coming from. I understand it. It's like it's I have some issues with it as well. It does call into some questionable ethics of whatever this god being is, but
Or devil.
or devil.
Be the devil.
I mean, even he could have sold it to Mark once Mark's like, keep the farm. You got to keep the farm. Mark could have bought it off him and kept it.
No. Mark says keep the field, not the farm. Though I assume that included in that is he's not buying the farm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't think it would be
there's a workaround where we don't even need this caravan of people. Literally
It
could have
would
just
be a
had
car
Mark
park
turn into a
situation.
believer and then solve the debt problem. Either by purchasing or giving the money, whichever. He even said they could live rent free on the property.
Because he doesn't want to kick them out.
Yeah.
I actually quite like the brother character. Even though he can come across as a bit of a nag, I actually think he has a lot of, he's coming from the right place for most of it. So I actually don't dislike him.
I wrote in my notes, why are they making him out to be a bad guy?
Yeah, this is an instance where the writers are trying to turn him into an antagonist, but they have no idea how to write him. It's the same issue I had with John Walker and Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Ooh, actually, wow, okay. Interesting comparison.
Yeah, well, I mean, because that's usually my go-to for
It's an
like
apt one.
Yeah, it's an after because it's usually what I go to because Falcon and the Winter Soldier. No offense to that show, they try to make John Walker out to be the villain. That's what the visual storytelling is, but it's in complete conflict with the writing because in the writing, all of his actions are justified. Like it makes perfect sense as to why he's doing things, and the fact that he's not villainous by the end. He's the only one that makes an active choice to throw away the shield to try and save civilians. And mind you, this is in a show where two characters try to steal the shield when someone whose best friend just died. So, good times.
Sorry for the minor spoilers.
Spoilers for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Don't watch it. Save your time for something else.
Something better.
Yeah.
Gotta give a fair warning. People clicked on this for Field of Dreams, and
yeah,
they get other things.
Yeah. So
you got to do better, audience.
Yeah. Anyways, to draw this back to kind of Mark, I was getting a little bit of that vibe, but like I don't understand why they're trying to portray him as an antagonist when he's usually the only time where I thought he was being villainous is when he grabbed the kid. Like that was the only time that
Well, that's his niece, right?
Yeah, I said the kid. Yeah, his niece. So like he can do that, but it came across as a little out of character for me. Not horribly so, but maybe just a nink.
I felt the same way with that.
It felt too far because he loves his sister. Like that's the whole reason. That's the whole motivation that why he's trying to do this. He wants to help his sister Annie, and that's a good motivation. And that felt like that was the only bit that felt a little out of character for me, because the rest of this you could have it. Anyway,
Do you think it would strengthen Mark's argument at all if it showed the perspective of Mark's eyes of what he's seeing during that
No.
part?
no, because
I think we can easily picture an empty field, and I don't think his argument's weak. His argument's sound. It's strong. It doesn't need to be bolstered.
I think what might have, I guess, prevented or would have synchronized their message a little bit. It would be a very short scene with Mark complaining to his wife. He's like, I don't know what my sister's doing. I just want to help her. Like, just something like that would have been enough, I think, to counteract. It would have added enough sympathy to prevent it from going in towards antagonistic territory. You know what I'm saying? It would have just been.
I don't know. That seems already conveyed. I don't know if they would need to say that.
Yeah, it would be more of just a moment alone with him because we only see him with Ray and his sister, not necessarily by himself with his family and stuff like that. So it'd be more to just convey about him. It's not necessarily needed because I don't think it's needed per se, but I think it would just prevent the more antagonistic feeling they try to build with the character.
While we're still talking about Mark, Sprinks, what are your thoughts on Mark? Kind of got writers and my thoughts on Mark.
That's a good question. I think he's definitely needed. Say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fine. Actually, I like the character of Mark, especially since he's more against. Well, he's first initially trying go with his sister Annie, but then seeing like a larger picture that it's all because of Ray, and Annie's supporting Ray, so then he goes after Ray over it. So I like that, like he's thinking more and more and seeing like the picture of what's happening over time.
Yeah, that's fair.
However, I do think it would be a bit more not dark, but a little more of a serious tone shift if we did see, and the film isn't going to do it because every perspective of what's happening is through the Ray of Ray. Everything's through the look of Ray. So when he's at that game and they see the White Sox out there playing and they're like cheering him on, and he goes, "No one's out there." Mark's like telling him. I think it would be something if we saw a point of like Mark watching them just sit on the bleachers cheering, and there's no one, and it's silence, to just show like that his sister and her husband are going like mad. They're crazy. And they're wasting their time on nothing, literally staring at an empty field as their money's going away.
I mean, I'd be fine with the addition. I don't think it's required. Addition.
I can agree with that. I would like the addition. I don't necessarily need it though. Yeah, that's pretty much my take on it. It would definitely.
They have enough to convey it.
Yeah,
the visual of him walking through the game.
Yeah, walking through the game.
It's a better visual. So.
Yeah.
What would have happened if the White Sox actually punched him?
I don't know.
Doesn't the bat go through him?
No, he doesn't hit him.
No, he gets held back. But what would have happened?
I have no idea.
No, I mean, when he walks by them, he swings his bat through him.
No, he wasn't. Did it? Did the bat get swung through him?
It went right through Phil. Mark.
Do one of you have it up?
I don't.
It looked like it did.
On the OBS side for today.
I didn't go frame for frame, but it looked like it did.
No, for me, it just looked like he was in the way. So like the pitch bounced off of him, or like that would still be an issue. I don't remember it though. I thought they just got angry with him because he walked across their line of sight in the field.
And they have to have some sort of physical presence because of Dr. Graham.
Yeah.
No, they have physical. They can touch things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And interact with environment too.
I have no idea what these ghosts are, what they can do and cannot do. There's problems with these ghosts, which we'll get more into.
Crimson, looking at the scene now at about 1 hour 21 minutes into the film, he does not get hit with a bat or get swung through a bat. It's a perspective of the angle of the camera to look like it, but on the wide gap, the bat wasn't close enough to hit him.
Okay.
So I legitimately have no idea what would happen if the ghosts interact with him.
I don't know if he'd get physically hurt in the back of the head and nothing, or if
doubtful. Because I think that he would have felt wind of the bat or the sound of the baseball flying next to him. That there would be other factors.
You know what? I guess that's also true. Would those materials of the bat and the ball have come through the cornfield and not of Ray's own things? Otherwise, it'd be like a floating bat and a floating baseball, right?
Yeah. Which is stuff he already had laying against the fence in the beginning, but this game we don't know.
Or is it like a physical alteration to an item? Like when a ghost has it, then it's like a ghostly or itemized thing. So like the baseball is now like in the possession of a ghost, so it can be invisible to those who don't believe or see or whatever.
I couldn't tell you.
Building problems.
With young.
Well, I don't know if it's a problem
Dr.
because
Graham. With young Dr. Graham, he gets a White Sox jersey. So they had a spare one. They had a ghost spare White Sox jersey.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't have to be a spare if he's a ghost the whole time.
Was he on the White Sox?
No.
So it wasn't it wasn't his jersey then.
It was the same day. That's right. It was just later in the night for the practice.
He wasn't on a team at this age. He wasn't on that team.
You're right. Unless they just had a spare lying around, which they could have been, because they could have planned already for this interaction with Moonlight Graham.
That's too far reaching for me.
Okay.
But that was something I had written down, was the whole jersey thing with Doctor.
Okay. So in that case, Crimson, do you think Shoeless Joe Jackson and the team are just present for the enjoyment, or do you think they understand the big picture of what Ray's going through and what's going to happen next and the voice?
I think it could be both, to be honest.
Okay. So if you... is Shoeless Joe Jackson being quiet because he already knows about Moonlight Graham and where that's going and the whole story of him? Because if that's so, then I can totally believe he just bring that extra jersey knowing he's going to be there in a couple days. Or that day, that matter.
Joe Jackson knew about the voice, implying it could be him.
That is true. He restates the words to Ray.
Yeah. He knew the boundary line rule. No one told him about that. So,
well, we gotta remember he's expecting the rookie to show up. Also, Springs. He's like, you're the rookie, right? That's pretty much what he says when he shows up.
Oh well, then I'm more. Yeah. You're right. He did knew Archie was going to be there. So okay, I'm fine with him having an extra jersey, knowing he's going to be there. He just brought it that day.
Well, and then there's the issue of why is Dr. Graham the only one able to live outside the baseball diamond?
That's a great question. I don't know.
That's
it. I don't know. I don't know how they go.
And then why does he turn old once he leaves?
Because that I understand. I think that's because he chose to leave baseball.
It's more like he's embracing, the life that he lived rather than his dream that he got to just because he got his dream. He got to wink at a pitcher. Pretty much. Wasn't exactly it didn't go exactly the way he wanted, but it was, he lived his dream.
Played with the White Sox.
And then, he kind of,
save the life of a little girl.
Well, the idea and concept, right, is that he's lived his dream. And I can go back to doing what he was meant to do, which is save lives as a doctor.
And I think
So
that's goes hand in hand with the whole conversation of when Ray goes through we'll just say the timey-wimey part, talking to him then, saying, come with me. And he goes, no, I'm going to stay here.
Young Graham, though, didn't know the events that would be before himself at that age.
And that's the...
yeah, I know you're
maybe.
there.
That's
Is that
Yeah,
that's why I think it's more of a world building issue than a character issue.
I don't know. I don't know how much the ghosts know about things. I'm leaning a little more. I'm like a 60-40. I'm leaning a little more that they do know, because they bring up things about their deaths and how long it's been since occasions, and talking about the voices and stuff like that. So I'm totally fine with Archie, Moonlight, Graham when they pick him up, knowing the whole outcome of what's going to happen.
But he doesn't act that way. He's the outlier to me. He was the one I had a lot of problems with in my notes.
Well, isn't that
Graham?
Would that not be if all the ghosts are supposed to know everything? Would that not be specifically for Ray? As to why he chose to do it that way? Because the idea that he is helping his father's hero, as they discuss in the van.
I'm not fully following. What do you mean?
Okay. Sprinks, your theory is right that they remember. The ghosts are fully aware of everything that's going on in order to get Ray to the place where he's willing to play catch with his father, right?
I think so, yeah.
They're also fully aware of the voice, or at least Shoeless Joe Jackson should be, and then
Yes.
they talk about their deaths and stuff like that. So, the outlier here has been Moonlight Jackson?
No, Moonlight Graham.
Moonlight Graham.
Archie Moonlight Graham.
Okay, Moonlight Graham. In that he seems to not know everything. My proposal here is, what if he chose to pretend to not know everything? Because the point of him hitching a ride in the young version of himself is to, once he gives his name, Ray realizes, what he's doing. He's helping his father's hero. And that's why they talk about his whole purpose in the story, because Terrence doesn't have one. So, that my question is that I don't, if that's an interpretation you can walk away with, I guess, how would that change your outlook?
For me, it would still stick with it. Like, I think that it's totally feasible that Moonlight is pretending.
Yeah, no,
to not know at the young
sorry,
age.
I was to clarify. I was asking Crimson.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. Okay. If it's pure, well, Ray was already acknowledging that he missed out on his father. That wasn't something he needed to get pushed towards. That's something he's acknowledged for years since his dad passed. So I don't think that would be required for him to acknowledge that, because he already has come to that conclusion. If he didn't have this car scene where he talks about it, and we get later the reveal of the dad being the catcher, I think the event would still play out the same. I don't think anything of his thoughts towards his father changed in this car ride.
No,
we just as an audience get information on it.
I'm not asking if it changed anything. I was just
would him pretending not to know fix the problems of Graham? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm asking if that fixes the problem for Graham necessarily for you. Yeah, because in relation to Ray, right? I think the addition of Graham to the story is just an additional driving force for him, because he's still coming to the conclusion that he wants to do this in the memory of his father. He's still working his way to that conclusion. I agree that he would still arrive at the same spot. This is just more of a, in terms of Ray's story, this is just more of an overt way to convey it to us, using Moonlight Graham.
So why do we have an old and young Graham?
I couldn't tell you.
Well, Okay, so a question slightly. When Shoeless Joe Jackson's at the Pebble line, and they invite him for coffee, and he goes, "I don't know if I can." What would happen to him if he did cross that line? What do you think?
Touching on a point I was going to bring up about the darn line, anyways.
Presumably
this
nothing,
goes with-
because Graham crosses
This goes
the
with
line.
Moonlight Graham.
Yeah, presumably nothing, because Moonlight Graham crosses the line. Or maybe they'll just turn it to something where when their lives weren't baseball. That would be my best guess of what I've been given in the film.
Okay, so if he crossed the line, he could have been like a really old man, like Graham.
It would have been
Dr. Graham.
It would have
I
been a
guess.
part of his life that didn't involve baseball. That was also very important to him. I'm assuming. So, like for Moonlight Graham,
He could have been a 5-year-old kid.
could be, yeah. But like Moonlight Graham, obviously, the reason he turned into a doctor is because that was the important part of his life outside of baseball. Obviously, baseball was a much smaller part of his life compared to everybody else. So it might have turned into something less meaningful than the baseball player they were known as, but it would have been still something significant as related to their life outside of it. That's basically all I have, because that's all the film gave me. It's still
Okay.
It's still a big problem, but
Okay.
because it's very
'Cause
open-ended.
Well, to me, it's not a problem on a touch of the White Sox and the Yankees and the team playing in the field. My thing is, how is the ghost of young Archie walking around? Because
Outside the field? Yeah.
yeah, that's the question. Like the main thing I have, like he's young outside the field. I think it would make sense if he's old outside the field. Like if they did get him old, to say, "Come with us to Iowa," and the old one crossed into the field and turned young. But the young one's outside the field, goes into the field, nothing, and when he crosses out of it, even though he's already a ghost to begin with, then he turns old. Now, when they go find him, and Ray goes through the timey-wimey thing and talks to the old version, that I'm okay with, because I think that's a set point for a ghost presence. And that could even be Ray. Again, that's something I don't know. I don't know if Ray's being taken out of reality and is in a ghost section, if he's actually back in time, so Graham's actually alive and not a ghost at that point. If it's... Only thing I know is it's not a dream sequence, because Ray gets himself back to the hotel room to talk to Terrence. But that I don't know. I don't know if it is a ghost being present in that time, then is he breaking and entering, going into his office?
Strangely enough, I thought it wasn't a ghost at that time, because of the whole transported back. I assumed it was timey-wimey stuff where he actually got transported back on his last night. Because I thought that was supposed to be Moonlight Graham's, like that was like the night before he died. That's how I read the scene.
Okay. Could be. I do think it's more of timey-wimey. That's the real life Graham.
Yeah, that's what
I'm
saying.
The world, yeah, the world as well. Like the world's changed into the time period.
Yeah, this is the world changed in the time period. I assumed through the timey-wimey stuff, I assumed that was supposed to be like the night before he died. He was just taking one last walk. You know?
Okay. That doesn't really go in hand. I mean, yes, to explain that, at least for me, doesn't exactly go in hand to describe young Ghost Archie.
Yeah, no, that's unrelated to young Ghost Archie.
Yeah. Crimson, what did you think about the timey-wimey thing, if it was timey-wimey to you?
Yeah, I read it as time travel.
Very vague.
I didn't like that it was time travel.
I obviously,
if it was... I mean, either way, if it was a ghost realm or time travel, I don't like either one in this, because it doesn't really happen again. That's a one-time rule thing. Boom, there you go.
That's for you, Sprints.
Yeah, that's for you, Sprints.
Oh, I know.
And it's just... It seemed unnecessary, because the rest of the film, we get ghosts, they spawn at the field. Why doesn't Graham spawn at the field? Or... yeah, I guess that'll just be it. Because he was a baseball player. It's not like he's just some random guy, somewhat loosely connected like Terrence to baseball. He was actually a player. So why wasn't he at the field?
I feel like I'm doing a lot of theory work, because I again, the film doesn't give us anything on this. So,
yeah.
But
I have a question
Yeah.
that I'd like more cemented, like answer from you two to help Blaine, because it's kind of questioning me here. What makes Archie not, or 4, you can go either or. What makes Archie on our get rid of character list?
Do I think he needs to be on the character list? Are you saying?
Could he?
The fact that the daughter chokes to presumable death if you wasn't there makes
Is that the
him
only thing holding
necessary.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
His presence doesn't change Ray or the dad reveal or anything. So.
And he doesn't change the parents.
Let's see.
And yeah, we'll talk about the choking thing later. But yeah,
I was just curious.
I guess so.
Like, how big and important is the Archie Moonlight Graham thing? It's a big chunk of the movie.
I mean,
but if
the whole car
it's
ride
solely
stuff
just for the character of him. I mean, the car ride is also him sleeping the whole time.
Yeah, but his presence facilitated the conversation with regarding Ray and his father and how he raised children. You know, it opens up the part where Terrence gets to talk about his books because of that and stuff like that too. So we get his own perspective on his writing. That's all.
Do we need Graham for that to happen? Is the question. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Like, obviously, that's what the movie's conveying.
Because we could just have Terrence dig in and ask about stuff with Ray, because he digs and investigates stuff. So
yeah, he's already been shown to sleuth. Like I said, that's what the film was trying to convey. Like, this conversation is prompted because of it, because of the whole, you know, you're helping your father's hero bit. It's a line I do like.
Yeah, but if we're sticking with we can remove a character and then tweak something to fix the void.
We'd have to tweak. We'd have to tweak a few things if we're removing him.
Someone else could have helped Karen. Another ghost of the field could have like looked at the line and crossed and taken, you know, Graham's place. That could have been just, you know, shouting, "She's suffocating! You know, give her time!" And they don't know how. Like, Ray doesn't know how. Annie doesn't know how, and he's really questioning it. And he, like, to save her, crosses the line, and then he goes, "Oh, sorry," and then he has the Moonlight Graham situation. Could be the guy with the, was it Molinator? Was that the guy with the cigarette thing? Okay, yeah. So he played Babe Ruth in Sandlot, and now he's in here. It could have been him, because we already have a small touch with him. Or it could be the guy who gets, well...
Wouldn't it have been good if it was his dad, Ray's dad? Come out and save his granddaughter? That would have been a good reveal, because the outfit would have disappeared.
Yeah, we're already pretty much at the end of the film.
That could have been a better reveal, actually, to me. I don't think we would need the, oh, look at him young. I've never saw him like that. I just saw the old grouchy version. But if we had the reveal of him coming out to save his granddaughter, and he just turns into the version Ray knows, I think that would potentially be better.
That could work. But then, I mean, the thing with Graham is as soon as he does that and turns old, he has to leave.
And he stayed.
I don't know exactly why he had to.
No, that's more rules with the ghosts being. Yeah. What's the rules of these freaking ghosts?
I also think that, you know, they keep asking if it's heaven. I think it's purgatory.
I don't think it's heaven.
No, they're walking around on Earth.
Yeah, my answer is that it's not heaven. That's pretty much my only answer.
I'm like,
heaven is a place on Earth. And there's a whole song on it. So
could be a personal thing, but if your love for baseball is so big, why is there no baseball in heaven? Like, why couldn't they be doing this in heaven? They have to come to Earth for Ray's field to be built.
Well, it's a character arc for Ray. That's why I this kind of ties back.
That was my problem. With
this is why it ties back
of the voice and stuff.
Yeah, everything will tie back into the world bending around Ray, which is why I think there's an argument to be made that he's a Gary Stu character. Because even the presence of the ghosts here are essentially to help facilitate Ray's character growth and accepting the fact that, you know, he didn't get the ending he wanted with his father's relationship. The relationship he had with his father. That's pretty much the whole character arc that he's supposed to go on thanks to this journey, and the whole world is bending because of it. There are ghosts that having consistent rules essentially because of it, whether they know or don't know that they're here for Rey. They're all here facilitating that particular point.
Why couldn't the ghost just summon the dad in the first place? Why do they have to build a baseball field and go through all this nonsense?
Gives them power.
I mean, Graham didn't need the baseball field.
Like I said, my best guess is that they just wanted a field to play on. Because that's not even.
Ray even goes back in time potentially.
Yeah, like I said,
just done that
the
with
world
his
building.
dad.
The world building is really fucked in this film.
I do believe nothing in this pushes Ray's thoughts of his father, pushes him in a direction with his father. It's all about the audience finding out more about his relationship with his dad. But I don't think Ray, his vision of his dad changes. I don't think that changes in here at all.
Yeah,
with the Graham stuff, or
but the whole film, start to end, I don't think Ray's thoughts of his dad changes.
Minor.
It's just him explaining his relationship with his father with other people.
It's very strange. A lot of the film is facilitating. This film is facilitating natural conversations for him to bring up his relationship with his father. Like a lot of it's kind of, when I'm putting natural in quotes here because it feels like the plot is built around those conversations in the sense that the plot supports this conversation. The reason that young Archie shows up in the van, which we have problem with, is that it helps to facilitate the conversation. Obviously, he wasn't necessary for that conversation because we discussed his removal. We can tweak the conversation to where we'd still have the payoff of it, but it still facilitates the conversation. And a lot of the conversation, a lot of the film is built around those particular points because all of it is pushing Rey to be ready for this final moment where he's gonna accept. He doesn't necessarily apologize, but he accepts that who his father is and that he got old and stuff like that, to the point where he's willing to play catch with him.
Yeah.
So
I'm still thinking the car ride though. Like, if they find out Graham's dead, been dead for I think 16 years, was it? And then they go check up on things about him, like what's his connection to baseball. If they just had all that info and nothing of Graham, and then got in the car ride back, I feel like they'd still have conversations about Graham, why they were there, what they saw, what they read, and then the thing to me that's a strong connection of the conversation about Ray's dad is Ray bringing up that Terrence Mann's book, the Boat Rocker, is at the age of 14 what turned Ray against his father.
Part of what turned Ray against his father, not I'm presuming he's not a one-dimensional character.
No. But then, like, Terrence was like, the book isn't,
Yeah, he gets defensive.
Built for that. And,
yeah.
But I think that's the strong point to get to the conversation about Ray's dad.
Yeah.
Is more through Terrence than it is through Graham.
Yeah. No, like I said, I'm not saying that Graham is required for it. My point here is that I'm agreeing with sort of what Crimson is saying is that his relationship with his father doesn't really change. How he views his father doesn't necessarily change. I think it changes a little bit, but not like so drastically that it doesn't remove him from the Gary Stu archetype. It's that like the whole plot is to get back to my original point is the whole plot revolves around regret that Ray has over his relationship with his father, to then convey that regret relationship with his father to us as an audience through the means of all these constructed, arbitrarily constructed things, like his father loved baseball, so he has to build a field, that sort of thing. We bring up the Archie Graham stuff. That's, again, whether or not Archie was good in that scene, the young Archie, or how much it affects the world building, he is there as an intention on behalf of the writers to facilitate the conversation about his father. And that's what a lot of the film comes across to me as. And that's why I have the Gary Stu question running in the back of my mind. Because that's what it feels like a lot of the story is built around.
well, even more on the Gary Stu part is Annie. She is the yes man. She's never an obstacle when she really should be. When he's bankrupting the family. He spent all of his money on an arbitrary baseball field, and Annie doesn't feel like a real person. You can have a supportive wife, but even supportive wives stress about financial issues and what if the future can hold
I
for
would
them.
disagree with you, Crimson, and the only reason I'm disagreeing with you is because there is a scene where she is pushing back. And that's when they are discussing. That's when they are talking about their finances. Like she's about to broach the subject. She's doing it in a very gentle way. She's saying it without saying it in the sense she's leading him to the correct conclusion of that the baseball field is bankrupting them. She's pointing that out.
And this is before she.
Yeah, this is before Stu Jackson shows up, so she is pushing back. So I would have agreed with you if that scene was not in the film, pretty much, because she is a very supportive wife, and I do like that about her character a lot. But she doesn't come across as one-dimensional.
I'm also on Ryder's side of what he's saying here. I think Annie is an incredibly supportive wife, an amazingly great character.
Yeah, because if they didn't have the scene where she's stressing about the finances and she's gently leading him to the conclusion of like, yeah, this is what's bankrupting us. I'm sorry, it's gotta go. Then the whole Sheila Jackson scene happened, and obviously that flips her position. I think if that wasn't in the film, I would definitely be in agreement with you, Crimson. I would have a much larger issue with her.
I do feel, however, even though Annie's like foray and like has the proof of she was Joe and the ghosts and everything, and it's like, yeah, I see it, I believe you, I'm for it. I wish she had a little more tension made with her brother Mark over it, because Mark's like, you're gonna go bankless, and the mom is like, it's not Crimson. You said the quote. It's like, it's rude to make fun of people or something to make them feel stupid. And Annie just like says like, you don't see him or whatever, and then waves him off and laughs.
Yeah.
I wish there was a little more like of Mark, like, Annie, no, you're getting hysteric. You need to see that you're looking at nothing, or like you're my sister. I wish there was a little more of that.
There should have been a little more conflict between Annie and her brother for sure.
It's hinted at that at one point when Ray's on the road and has a phone call with Annie, and she turns around and they're at the table.
Yeah.
With the two lawyers. So it could possibly be there. It could have been cut, but
it's not what we have. Unfortunately that did not make it into the film. I would have liked to see, again, that would have fleshed her out a little bit more. We've been talking a while, so I'm assuming you have thoughts, Crimson.
Yeah, that little bit I don't think's enough to save her character from being too nice, because the comparison I think of something we covered, A Wonderful Life, Sprinks even teared up at how supportive Mary was to this is embarrassing. I'm gonna blank on his name. George Bailey.
Oh my.
Jimmy Stewart, who was also in this. Funny enough. But she butts heads with him, even though she's completely supportive of him throughout the entire film. Like there's actual arguments. There's debate on how he reacts to situations. In this, it's also watered down to where it doesn't feel like a real person.
Okay. What about the scene where she's pushing back and doesn't want him to go across the country to see Terrence Mann?
Well, it's like a passing thing. It's like,
don't
go.
They have they have an argument. She's like, we need to do this. We have to do this. That's there.
He does research in a library to bring up examples to her for it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, I'll just go do it right now. And she goes, well, what does Terrence Mann have to do with baseball? So then he does a bunch of studying to prove to her.
Yeah, that's there. I mean, like I said, what changes her mind in that scene is the fact that they both had a shared dream and she realizes it. But up until that point, she's actually pushing against him going, the idea of against him going. That's like a 3-minute scene, 4-minute scene. So it's not just a little bit of where she's against him on the finances too. Like she's leading him to that conclusion. She's also pushing against this because she needs him to be on the farm because of, the financial troubles they are going through. Like he needs to be there for that. And again, it doesn't
Perhaps
let him go.
It's the acting for me then, because she's so calm I agree. She's explaining situations. She's trying to lead him to his own conclusions. But it's such a dire situation that she doesn't portray urgency to me. Even though she's saying things that would imply urgency, I didn't get that off of her at all through her performance.
I don't think in that scene it's not urgency because she didn't know her brother was going to try and buy out the farm or that they were going to be declared bankrupt, I guess.
She knew the finances, that they wouldn't have enough
Yeah.
for the mortgage and stuff, even without the buyout option on the table. She knew they were already in the hole. So I think it would be an urgent situation, and I didn't get that off of her portrayal.
I trying to think about what I would want from the actress in that moment. Because I don't know if it was. It felt
faster speech, maybe slightly raised voice.
Yeah,
not like yelling or anything, but something.
You get Annie's passion and drive during the PTA meeting.
Yeah,
you don't have that towards the house and her family.
Is it because she knows? Is it because she knows her brother's going to buy them out and they're just going to live there rent free? That kind of solves the immediate issue of like, oh, I'm not going to be homeless.
I feel like she'd still relay that to Ray.
Well, remember that's not in this scene. This is before the bankruptcy and the brother trying to buy them out. So that hasn't happened yet. I wonder.
And
I mean,
they don't get anything that tells us she knows about the buyout option either.
Not until her brother explicitly states it at the end. The only
I don't know if I can say she knows it without us knowing that she knows it.
Yeah. I'm in agreement there. Trying to think about like, I guess I know the point of the bank showing up to foreclose them pretty much is supposed to add a layer of tension to the film, but I think it's raising a different issue for me, not necessarily to Annie, but I guess I just want more answers on the timeline of how crunched they are, because it could have been that the bank just happened to show up at a very bad time, like ahead of schedule. So like they would still had time to work things out, but now they just don't have the time anymore. But that's not conveyed in the film, so it comes across as Annie, I guess, being not as urgent as you would want from the actress. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna have to rewatch that scene because I thought the actress did a fine job portraying that, but maybe I can see what you're looking for with the acting in particular. All right, I'm gonna table the acting portion of that as a check mark for me to look at later.
All right.
By the way, looking through my notes now, I brought it up earlier. The baseball jazz is at 30:15 of the film. Also at an hour 17. Two different places, two different types. I think they're two different songs.
Yeah, the hour 17 one, that's the one I timestamped. That was
that's when Archie's up to the bat.
Yeah, no, that's when Archie's there for the full game. Yeah.
Yeah, the 30:15 one I think is when they have a team like skirmish game.
I might have missed that one because I was actually never mind. Go on.
Either instance, two uses. They're in there. Got your baseball jazz.
Can't have a baseball movie without the baseball jazz, right?
Well, you can. It's just not as good.
Hurts the film objectively, obviously. I guess when the team shows up for their skirmish game, I really like the delayed reaction they all have. Like they all get there, they're all really giddy, and then they just run out and laugh together. It was a very small scene, but I really appreciated the fact that, oh my god, we're finally here at a field, you know?
Yeah, they're in disbelief.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that.
Now, it's not. I think it's definitely played to just the movie's sake. But do you think Shoeless Joe Jackson is the first one to come individually because of the connection Ray has with that ball player to strengthen? And there's a possibility. I think Ray isn't freaking out over him being there, of being present, because Ray's brought up that he doesn't know where Shoeless Joe is. So I think he's not freaking out over Shoeless Joe being there because there's a part of him that believes he's still alive.
Not at that age.
No, I mean, he looks a lot, he looks great, but he brought up, like, he's been gone, took on, I think, 50 pounds. Like, people don't know where he is, but he never said he's dead.
No, I didn't read that into it. Purely because of how old Shoeless Joe Jackson would be. Because the whole White Sox incident happened in 1919. This takes place in 88. That's a pretty large number for someone aged there. That's
I just think it would have been more
70
I mean, if he did
plus
see
he
it,
was
like,
probably 20 when he played, so he'd be a 9-year-old man.
Took it in as, like, an actual dead ghost or something. Well, maybe, it could
Well,
just
then
be
he would still have the shock of, oh my god, there's a ghost.
Yeah, it could just be someone's different portrayal of it, thought. Because Terrence, when he meets them, he's, like, real hesitant and shaky, and smiling the whole time. But Ray meeting him is, I guess, it could be a sign of shock. It's also probably fatherly protection, because I think Karen just says, there's a man out there.
Yeah, but his reaction to that wasn't, oh, there's an intruder. It's, oh, is it happening? Is the thing that's supposed to happen happening, whatever it is?
Because he already
That's what
had
his reaction was.
He already had the vision of seeing him on the field, so.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the on edge because there could be an intruder. That's not how they played that scene out. But I'm glad you brought that up, because my problem was his lack of reaction. It was very mellow. Terrence's, I think, was good. He was like,
what the hell
shocked,
are you? Yeah.
Lost for words almost reaction.
But reason
Ray didn't have that.
No. Not at first, no. The reason I bring up the Ray thing, to think that possibly Shoeless Joe Jackson's still alive, to kind of go with maybe a thought in his head about it, is because when he's batting and he asks, hey, can you pitch for me? And Shoeless Joe Jackson hits a home run, like, into the corn. The camera changes, which I saw it as, like, a good connection of camera usage with the scene of the character as well. The camera changes of Ray on the mound is now handheld to give a little more shaky perspective to the sides, which I see as he took it as a surreal moment, to now find a click in his head, hey, I'm playing a game here, a little bit of a game with the Shoeless Joe Jackson. I saw that as the clicking point for Ray.
But I'm pretty sure it clicked before that.
Again, this ties into my dislike for Kevin Costner. I don't think he's a great actor, usually. Again, I agree that's subjective, though. I agree that's subjective. In terms of his reaction, it's very subdued. I think the only reason I was okay with it is because he was expecting it to happen.
Okay. I'll point out go ahead, Crimson.
I did look something up, because I didn't know the answer. And he's like, see if you can hit my curveball, something along those lines. So I'm like, okay, when was the curveball first utilized in baseball?
Interesting.
So look that up. 1867. So definitely safe.
Oh, yeah.
That one.
He's good. Over 100 years. Yeah.
Well, no, because it would have been when he played baseball in 1919.
Oh, that's right.
But still very, very safe on the implementation of the curveball. He would know what it is.
More of the understanding Shoeless Joe Jackson knows what it is.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, I knew Ray would know what a curveball is. It was for Jackson. Didn't know when curveballs were integrated.
Gotcha. My notes, a little rumor I like catching was when Ray was at the hardware store, I guess. And
very, very small town vibe.
Yeah, the community of elderly folk picking up a rumor that just spread like wildfire of, Ray's going crazy, Ray's hearing voices, Ray's building a baseball field. I like that they're all staring at him and the radio in the background's playing Crazy by I wrote it down here. By Patsy Cline. I think that was just good detail to add.
Yeah.
And I know Crimson has history with that song, not being a favorite of his.
Also from that scene, I got right. We'll get it. A Doctor Who vibe from the Matt Smith episode with the Dreammaker. I don't remember. That Amy was pregnant and Rory, and they had was the ship real or the village they were in real?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I got those vibes from that village because
a little cultish, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird that they just showed up to just watch him cut down his cornfield. Like I didn't think the town was that small.
Oh, drew in a crowd, yeah.
I thought it was a little weird, just a bit.
It was weird.
He's
going to lose his farm.
I know. The point of it's to convey that he's being really weird and odd, but it's normal for people to kind of to cut their crops.
It wasn't the season for corn.
Yeah.
So weird.
I guess not. I feel like
I don't really know when corn season is, but this wasn't it.
Usually fall, right? Pumpkin patches have a lot of corn.
I also just want to say
I feel like corn stalks are year round. I feel like I see them all the time.
I just want to say I really appreciated all the Man of Steel imagery of Kent walking in the field.
Oh, well. This is what got him the role.
Jonathan Kent, maybe, yeah.
At 9 minutes, I think it's the part where Ray hears the voice a second time or third time or whatever, and throws the stalk into the ground. And it's like, all right, what do you want? That part. At the 9 minute mark, there's a little music cue before the voice says anything, and Ray looks around. Does Ray hear the music that's going on?
No. They use that music cue every time something happens in this.
They did, but it played.
He does not react to them, so I'm not going to say
He reacted to this one. It went off at 9 minutes, and it played, and he looks around. Like he hears something, and then he goes back to his thing, and then the voice says something.
Well, you could have just heard a whisper of it, and we don't hear it as an audience.
Or
I guess I got a blast.
Heard the corn move or something. Thought somebody was moving. But that music cue is used a lot when something supernatural happens, and he doesn't acknowledge that. So I'll say no.
Okay. Ryder, let's go to you for another point.
I like the way Shoeless Joe Jackson describes the baseball field to Ray when he talks about how it's like. I didn't write his description down, but he had a very, very like artistic and beautiful description of like what the feeling of it is like when they're talking.
Smell the ball, the glove, the grass.
The grass.
Yeah.
Yeah, really showed his passion for it. I could see him coming back from the dead to play some more baseball.
Baseball's life.
Yeah, that is his afterlife.
A lot of these movies are telling us that a baseball player, baseball is life.
Unless you're Dottie.
She came back.
Then she can give it.
She went back to the museum. But that's right. She did leave. She didn't love it.
I don't love it.
I have that another little color theory thing is when Ray and Annie are when Annie's family's there and they're like you're being silly and the three of them walk off. I guess it's Mark, the mom, and I guess Annie's sister. Annie and Ray are both wearing white, so I saw that as like being that they now believe in the field. It's a little sense of rebirth on them.
Yeah, that usually tracks with the normal color theory for pure white, I guess. So. I like that
you know my stance on color theory. So.
Yeah, that's why I'm just gonna move along.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
I quite liked his wife's reaction to knowing that he's hearing the voice again. And he's like, I hope it's not
ease his
a.
pain.
Yeah, he's like, I hope it's not a football field.
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
That's definitely outside the budget.
Yeah.
Crimson. The comment you just made of we know what you feel about your color theory thing. Can you give the audience who don't understand that somewhere to go to listen to that?
That's
You
it.
know
That's
where
a
you
good
have a good
question.
example of
Which
it?
podcast was that in? Where
I feel like it would have
dived
shown up in
into
Mr.
an
and Mrs.
example.
Smith, but
I'm like, for those curious.
Yes, that's Mr. and Mrs. Smith with the whole black and white thing.
That's a great. Yep, there we go.
yeah, the reason I
That's
brought
great.
Mr. and Mrs. is the one I
Black
remember vividly
being
because
business serious, white being laid back, whatever.
no. That's at least that was not my color theory with Mr. and Mrs.
It was something
Smith,
like the black on white and the white on black in outfit attires and something.
yeah, it was a consistent
and
that
what
was a
that
consistent
symbolized.
motif throughout the film. So that's one of the few I subscribe to.
No, but that one had a big discussion. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, watch it, listen
Thank
to
you.
it.
I was just curious. For those wondering, maybe.
It's popped up like in 8 or so, I would imagine.
Yeah, Mr. Smith is just the one I remember because
that's a good one.
Yeah.
A little match I liked in the film was the Wizard of Oz reference. So when the ball player's out there like, I'm melting as he's fading away. When it's later talked with Annie, says the PTA banned book meeting, or the book's being banned, she brings up Wizard of Oz. I'm like, oh, that's a nice little just 2-touch.
double tap on the nod.
Yeah.
I would love to see people's thoughts on the whole book scene now. I saw a lot of parallels to today.
Oh yeah, I loved that scene because it would piss off so many more. I love that scene because I know it would piss off a lot of people today, and I think that's why I love that leads into why I love the scene. But it's also Annie gets to kind of flex her character a little bit.
Oh, her 60s prep rally speech.
Yeah, but my favorite aspect of the whole scene is actually what happens right afterwards, which is when the two of them are talking over each other in the hallway.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to get a natural scene where two characters talk over each other. It's very normal. We obviously don't try to do it for the podcast, but people talk over each other and talk past each other all the time. And it's a very, very difficult thing for a writer to do that naturally in a script where people are meant to have back and forth to facilitate a story. I quite loved that scene a lot because they both are focusing on completely different things but are still trying to listen and talk to each other at the same time. Fucking writer's dream. I loved it.
With that, Sprinks, does that scene damage Ray to you?
The hallway scene?
Yeah.
No, I to me it's weird that it's like, oh, people arguing and talking about Terrence Mann a lot, like being brought up. It's like, oh, that's the guy I got to ease my pain, and he says it's just a feeling. That I feel is a little weak, but the whole explanation of like why he thinks it's Terrence Mann and like listening to Annie in return about the meeting that happened, like just back and forth, I think that's all totally fine.
Well, it was more on how he was technically treating her by completely ignoring her high that she just got from something she's passionate about and only focusing on himself.
I don't fully agree with that. I think it's definitely more on himself, but he's not completely ignoring her.
He wasn't acknowledging the things she was saying. What do you mean? It's like,
I think,
hey, I figured out what it means. I figured out what it means. I know what I need to do. He didn't acknowledge her at all.
No, I still think it's fine. I think it's fine.
You still think he acknowledges her?
I think he's listening to her. Yeah. He already wrote down. Because he's not telling her to shut up or something, and just nodding around.
That's acknowledging her. He doesn't acknowledge her at all, positive or negatively. He's just talking about himself.
All right, I guess so then. If he's just too full of himself in that moment, I guess I'm too focused on the. I guess the previous part when telling Annie to like calm down, but it's too much on Terrence Mann in the hallway.
And since we said a lot about it, this whole book thing plus them talking over each other, favorite part of the movie for me.
Me too. It's definitely my favorite part of the film as well. At least he isn't a book burner, you Nazi cow. Oh,
Yeah, that was so good.
that was one of my other reaction timestamp. Loved it.
I did laugh at I don't know the lady's name, but when she spilled out shit, and everyone in the crowd like, oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, that's why to me that's again it's just so indicative of the time period. Another detail I did like though is that Annie uses the Red Scare appropriately. Like, what are we? Stalin's Russia or whatever. Uh, that would and everyone that kind of helped everybody to finish raising their hands up because this would have been either they would have all lived through
Towards
the Red
the
Scare.
end of the
Yeah,
Cold War, yeah.
yeah, they would have lived through the Red Scare. So that to me was just a beautiful world building time period note as well. Brought up in a casual way, a natural way to kind of continue to get the audience on her side. I loved it. My favorite scene of the film.
Yeah, she references a few bad people in this and comparing her to them.
Yep.
Or what she's claiming to do, anyways. Not her as an individual. Well, she does call her Nazi cow, but
yeah,
it's more of an insult than actually calling her that.
yeah. She's being it as an insult because banning books is just one step away from burning books. It's I'm gonna get a little political, but it's always a very very dangerous downhill slope when you're dealing with
Didn't
stuff
they
like
make
this.
To Kill a Mockingbird? Did they ban that one recently?
I'm sure they did
Probably.
in Florida. I'm sure. if there's ever a book banned, I'm just gonna assume Florida did it because Florida's weird.
And then there's the whole Dr. Seuss stuff that happened a few years ago as well. But
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
yeah, that nonsense.
Whew, all right.
Sometimes you're at there's a book burning situation and you run into Adolf and he sends your book.
That part was funny. Like I have a lot of I know it's an Indiana Jones. I don't remember which one, but
It's Last Crusade.
it was funny. I quite enjoyed that.
Get the mustache man to sign his book.
Yeah.
Oh,
Pretty
man.
funny scene.
Very tense, but funny.
Yes. Well constructed scene. But that's a different movie.
Yeah.
That's Crimson, why don't you take us away with a point?
Sure. A point that I have is within this film. It is the very thing I'm looking at my notes right now.
Okay.
You didn't have one lined up.
The dad scene. No, I didn't have one lined up. Yeah, the dad reveal. We kind of touched on it a little bit. How do you guys actually feel the reveal was? I threw out the alternative of him rescuing the granddaughter. Yeah, but that obviously didn't happen. How do you feel about the actual reveal?
I think visually it was okay. I think I'm okay with it visually is because it's reminiscent of our photograph of him we have at the very beginning of the film. He's like holding the catcher's mask the same way and looking at the camera the same way and looking at Ray the same way. It's a nice way to kind of bookend it. That being said, it left me wanting. I didn't feel like the film earned it.
Can't agree with you more. I felt the same way. It just felt hollow to me. And it was hard to put it in my notes why.
Yeah,
why it felt hollow, because it was all about talking about the dad throughout the movie. But once it happened, it's like, this is it. I don't know what I want, but this feels like nothing.
Yeah. I'm assuming you're different.
Frank, you
from our
said you
stance.
cried, so I imagine it's probably
I
around
did.
this scene.
No, I cried when Ray said, "Hey, do you want to play catch?" Because that got me on a personal level. I found it very touching. However, I see what you mean by hollow. I think it's not great that the dad was there the whole time and knew his son was there, going with the ghost no things. So he knew Ray's there and he waited, or played dumb.
They changed catchers a couple times, right? Because that's not
Yeah,
always Ray.
I think they could
Ray's
have
dad.
easily just touched it a little if when the ghosts were showing up for that game, they just like we saw the back of his head put the catcher helmet on or mask on.
You'd want it
it's
to be
like
set up a little
something's-
more. Yeah.
Just a little. So it's like there's something about this character we don't know, but there's a reason like why this scene is in here. Like there's one little
The
bit
visual of
of, like,
behind
seeing
his
the back
hedge
of the
putting the
catcher.
mask on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So then when the reveal of it is like, oh, that can kind of clear up. He was brought here just for this one game, so he hasn't been around all the time. There's something to do with this character that's hinted at that we don't know, so the reveals like pay off to that. And after all the talk of the dad, it still goes with it. So I think like just something real small like that could help aid it.
Yeah, and to go with I think you put that well. To go with the hollow feel of it for me as well is like what I brought up earlier, where it doesn't feel like Ray changed towards his father. It doesn't feel like they built up to this. Even though his father's referenced throughout, nothing felt built up. The whole finding Terrence and going to see Dr. Graham, that doesn't feel like a lead up to seeing the dad. That didn't feel like the steps they were going to build towards the dad, which I think is what makes it feel hollow. The events leading up to it didn't build to it.
Well, it's just more explanation of it. It got to the point of Ray expressing more about his dad, but it's not a build up or a strength or like getting past something.
All right, I got a comparison here that I think might help. There's a Pixar movie called Onward, where the entire film is based around a similar concept, which is that they want to see the face of their father, or the youngest one wants to see the face of their father.
I believe we've all seen Onward.
Yeah, and I'm just stating out the basic aspect that I'm going to touch on here. Because the film builds it up so strongly, the quote unquote turn of the letdown at the end, where he doesn't get to see the main character doesn't get to see the father. Instead, the older brother wants, because the older brother is the one that wants closure. In my comparison between this and that is that there was a lot more meaning behind that built up to the meeting, whereas this one is building up the relationship, not necessarily building up the meeting. And I think that might lead to why it's hollow, because it's a nice reveal, but there are things that they could have conveyed afterward that would have made it feel less hollow, because they talk about seemingly sweet nothings. He doesn't even introduce him as his father to his daughter, you know? He just kind of says, this is John. And I think it would have been a lot more meaningful if he actually did go through with introducing who he was and what he is to him. Because at this point, Karen's old enough, she would have heard stories from her dad about who his father was.
Wouldn't Karen recognize this guy of the photo in her house?
Yeah, possibly. But it still would be more meaningful because the focus is on him. Like, he hasn't met his granddaughter.
Yeah. See, I see that as more of a surprise because there's no build up that Ray's going to see his dad. Whereas Onward is like building up to like, oh, we got to solve this to see our dad.
Yeah. Like I said, but see, my point is that it's not hollow when you're seeing the dad. It's still a beautiful scene that the older brother gets to see his dad in Onward. My point is the hollow feeling that we were getting from this is that it doesn't feel earned, and it feels hollow in a way that, like, because of all the conversations.
I agree. I think it just plays into, to me, the tone little shift into Moonlight Graham is a story of the film that I think should have been more focused on Ray and parts of his father.
Mm-hmm.
To get to that point.
Yeah, I would agree. Or at least with in Crimson's case, you would want him to have grown in a way to help like facilitate this, right?
Yeah.
because the lack of growth for me kind of shows why not just show Ghost Dad at the beginning instead of doing this whole baseball thing. Because if there was something to build towards and these baseball moments, finding Graham, Terrence, all that stuff, actually has him have change as a person to where when he meets his dad, it'd be a good interaction, then I think it'd be more warranted. But his lack of changing his thoughts on his father makes everything seem pointless to me.
I think, like I said, I do, like I said, my disagreement with you in this, that not overly, because I do agree that's a major problem. He does change a little bit. Like, he talks about how he just didn't want to play catch with his father anymore. That's a reference they directly make in his conversation in the van. So, like, it's clear that something did change, but it's not clear to us, the audience, what did change, if that makes sense.
Was that a change? I took that as just information, because he said once his dad died, that was it. He couldn't apologize or change things. It was like that.
Well, no,
I didn't see that as growing.
Was it?
No, he references
also...
he references explicitly that he one day just refused to play catch with his father. Like, he just wanted to give it up because his father was pushing him to play baseball so much that he just decided to stop doing it, partly because he read Terrence Mance's book. So
Teenage Rebellion.
Yeah, the whole Teenage Rebellion bit. So the arc theoretically that he is supposed to go on is that it's a kind of an arc of acceptance that, you know, he missed out on good times because of this, good or bad, you know. And sorry,
for going with that, I wish they just didn't bring up the funeral thing then, because I think that totally undercuts it.
The fact that he went to the funeral.
He went to the funeral and then realized that was it. He couldn't change anything. That was it. That right there is what I think the change should have been then. But that happened in the past. That didn't happen due to the events of this movie.
Yeah, like the realization that he missed out did not happen in this film. I think I'm in agreement with that. So like I said, I think that's the intention.
That's why I didn't view it as a change.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the intention of the film is for us to view it as a change. They just, you know, didn't construct it to us. They constructed it to us poorly.
Was it?
Springs, were you saying something in there?
Yeah, was it coming to the end of the realization that the voice and everything was in regards to his dad? Like, if you build it, he will come, he being the dad, ease the dad's pain, go to the distance.
That was going to be my last question. When did you guys realize, if you did at all, that was in relation to the dad? Because I figured that out pretty early that it wasn't Shoot Jackson.
End of the movie for me, and I'm still not 100% on if that is for that reason.
I
feel like they spell it out with Sheila Joe Jackson at the end when he quotes it back to him.
If you build it, he will come, referring to the dad. Yeah.
And then the dad reveal. So I feel like it's pretty plainly put out there.
Let's see. You're asking what I think of the twist of it, or you're asking?
He's asking if the voices
if you
are
realized
all in relation to his dad.
Oh, okay. What we think of when we realized the voice was in relation to his dad.
When you realized, if at all, it was in relation to the dad.
I realized it on the ride back from Terrence, when he and Terrence are talking about his past.
When Moonlight's sleeping in the back.
Yeah, and that's when I was. I can't tell if that's when I realized or that's when I knew. You know what I'm saying? It might have been
when
one of the same.
An idea and concrete.
Yeah. It might have just been my idea forming concretely that was a strong potential of what might have what might happen. Yeah, so that would have been when I figured it out.
Gotcha. Oh yeah.
What was your starting point, Springs? I forgot what that was already.
My starting point?
You prompted
said something and then I jumped into that. Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, whoopsies.
Darn it.
Don't know anymore. Look at my notes. I just saw. I wrote down that Moonlight Graham has, when he's in his office, has a reflection in the window, which helped cement me that that's not a ghost.
Depends on what mythos of ghosts.
Yeah.
It's not a vampire. There's stuff where ghosts have reflections.
I don't know. It was just an element to me that helped me like, oh, this is time travel. more so. But one of my favorite shots in the movie, not my favorite scene. Yeah, one of my favorite shots is when Ray drops Terrence off. And he's like, okay, you know, thanks for coming. Sorry for wasting your time. And the shot's a single shot inside the car as he's doing a U-turn in the street, and then Terrence is in the road.
Yeah.
That's a nice shot, but something that really got me is that felt like out of a thriller or a horror movie feel.
Yeah.
The shot itself,
Especially
yes, but I think the
lighting
tone
of the
helps.
headlights and nighttime.
Yeah.
I think the tone obviously dissuaded it from feeling like a horror film, but I agree the shot is definitely reminiscent of that.
I think could be my favorite scene, but one of my favorite scenes I think is the gun bit where Ray has a gun in his pocket.
I loved it so much. You can't beat me, you're a pacifist. And he just goes, shit. And throws the code rock to the ground. I just loved that.
I
that made me
forgot
laugh.
that.
That made me laugh. That was definitely one of my favorite bits.
Your finger. Show me your gun.
I'm not going to show you my gun. Why would I show you my gun? It's great.
I have a lighting issue I caught.
It's probably the only one I wrote down. Let's
Oh,
hear it.
do you have a timestamp for it, Crimson?
No, I don't have time.
Okay, at 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 20 seconds.
No, it was
When
really
Annie gets a phone call from Ray and wakes up and turns on the bedside lamp. You can see for a moment that the bedside lamp light turns on, but then the artificial lighting outside to light up the room warms up and comes on.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah,
Interesting.
that would be a lighting issue. My lighting issue was when the stadium was done, or the field was done, and they're looking at it before the whole lights are revealed to be a built thing, and it's nighttime. The lighting on them looked artificial, and from a side angle opposed from a top down.
They looked green screened
which
in
is
that
where
scene
it would
to
have
me,
been.
which might be
Plus
why
that.
which might be why I thought the lighting was off.
Yeah, 'cause the lighting would have been top down, not from the side. That as well.
Gotcha. Question I have, which I feel like we're all going to be on the same page for. Did Terrence die?
I had that written. What was the exact words? My answer is yes, he died. I'm trying to find my note.
Well, I guess while Crimson looks for that, Ryder, your thoughts on it?
Since he promised to come back, I don't know. I was confused by it.
Okay.
I would assume he died, based
I'm on
off
the
of what
side
I'm saying.
He did. He was given the chance to die then, and he took it. Being able to come back, I think, means he can come to the field, but he can't cross that line. Like the gravel line.
Yeah.
I wrote, man is invited to die. That's what I wrote. Okay.
Very descriptive.
Yeah.
Very straight to the point.
Man with two ends.
Yes, man with two ends. The first man I wrote did not, but once I saw his name written, I'm like, oh, two ends. A problem I do have with Man, not directly, but with Annie, is that Annie hardly has any interaction with him, even though he's like her favorite author.
Yeah, she would have been a hero to them both because they were from the 60s. So yeah, I would have liked some more.
Yeah, that felt like it was missing when they could have thrown something in there for that. She didn't even say goodbye to him either, really.
Yeah, she was just with her daughter because her daughter nearly choked to death. So her priorities are in order, but I still would have liked a comment.
Well, she's not choking anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I think it also helps explain Shoeless Joe telling Ray can't come. Because pretty much means like, hey, if you cross that line, you're dead, and you can't be with your family anymore.
He wasn't invited.
Yeah. Poor Terrence's dad, though. If he truly just died here, he just left his dad because his dad was worried, right?
Oh, missing?
That's the phone call.
I do like that. It's nice. It's a nice touch that, you know, the world building is keeping track of him, but also he died. So I have a bit of a note. I like Ray talking to himself in the van where he's practicing how he's going to introduce himself to Terrence. It's a very human thing. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. Good touch on humanity there. I don't know why I just gave that an accent.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's see.
I guess more on the ghost issue. Even though we've talked heavily about Graham, is why can't he go back? Why is he stuck as old Graham?
I don't know.
Solidify his choice and what he made, maybe? Baseball? He chose to be a doctor?
I don't.
He can't be a doctor anymore, though. He's dead.
I don't know the rules of the Beyond. I don't.
Maybe it's where his heart initially lies. And that's the proof of it. It's like, you know, you're a big fan of baseball, but given the choice, you chose to be a doctor instead. And like that was the life he made, chose. So given the dream, I mean, it helps connect to the being brought up with Ray in the timey-wimey section of like, you know, I know a way to answer that. And he goes, well, coming from you, I think I believe that, but still chooses not to. I think this just helps solidify that. It's like he actually was present to be able to have that dream, and he chose not to.
And then I had a very early theory, a Sprinks theory, because I didn't believe in it, but
Ooh.
And I don't think it holds through by the time I finish the movie, but I was like, are these ghosts or astral projections of their dream state back in time? Because we get Shoeless, whatever. I'm blanking on his name now. Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson's like, I missed the smell of stuff. I woke up and smelled the grass and stuff. Like, oh. So is he playing ball here, but back in time he dreamt it and wakes up having experienced this projection to the future? That would kind of help with Graham being like, I got to go back to his wife and stuff like that. He's waking up. Could all just be dreams, a field of dreams of these people back in time.
Crimson, I love that theory. That's a great thought. The only weird thing is if they're all dreaming at the same time and they're all at the same field.
Especially since
then again,
a bunch of
could
people have to come and show up with money.
already.
Yeah.
It could be all over. Like one dream doesn't have to connect. Like they all have to be dreaming at the same time in 1919. It could be like one dream to this set point of time is for the one person.
This is the anchor.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only issue that I'm starting to see with that is the immediate one being all the cars showing up at the end to physically give them money.
The thing I have with it is they all have a select group time to leave.
Well, I wouldn't know what the rules of this dream state are.
It's also Ray had a specific dream to be by himself, which is his first interaction. Like he's like, "Oh, I got other people who want to join," and then he asks the red.
He turns out he really is crazy. He wakes up in a mental hospital one day.
Could be.
Yeah.
No, you finish Field of Dreams, and then you watch the beginning of Walking Dead. You're like, oh, Rick Grimes is Ray.
Why would that be depressing?
It was all in Rick's head.
Oral.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah. let's see. I guess
I like the theory. I'll say that.
I like the theory as well. I don't know. It makes the
That was a
boundary
little
issues
more
very
sci-fi.
weird. And I guess it makes Terrence's part in it very weird, so that's why it doesn't really hold up.
Like I said, I don't believe in it. But.
Yeah. It's a good theory, though.
Terrence,
I
quote
like
unquote, dying is him falling into a coma.
he's
He's
just out
officially
there
brain
asleep in
dead.
the field dying. That sucks.
Yeah, that's why he fades away. Also, I guess it would line up because you said 1919 was when Joe Jackson played, but the rest of the team, were they going to 1939 at least for the Chicago White Sox?
Ghost rules. Who dictates their ages when they
Well,
come
I'm
back
just
to
saying
this baseball
the
field?
Wizard of Oz reference they make would have been 1939.
Yeah.
Much like looking up your curveball situation.
I presume they lived 20 years past when they were playing baseball in their prime. It's possible they
so
saw
they're
the
old
movie.
enough to get to there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they have memories, as we've established, of even
It's true.
their deaths. So.
Well, looking over my notes here, I think I only have one last thing to touch on. Since we've kind of had a very good, cram-packed pod today. Last thing I have, which helps that it's not a one-time situation. There is a camera shot early on at 5 minutes and 25 seconds. I think it's the first time he hears the voice. And Ray's out of the field, and he hears the voice and walks out of frame before hearing it again and coming back into frame, showing the character movement of following and not causing motion blur on the camera to follow Ray. That appears later as well, where at 47 minutes, he walks out of frame and comes back in to show movement of the character movement and not the camera. I think those were very nicely done cinematography uses.
That's fair. I'm looking through my notes now as well.
I have a problem with Terrence's introduction scene. He closes the door, he slams it. He does not actually close it and lock it. I don't know why he doesn't lock it, because at this point he has an intrusive stranger.
He has reason to, yeah.
Yeah, and if you're going with well, maybe the voice told him that something's about to happen here, then why did he close the door on him a couple times then? If that
No, I wouldn't say it was the voice.
He doesn't hear the voice until the baseball field, right? We're in agreement with that.
The first time closing. Yeah, he didn't. I mean, I don't even think he heard it at the baseball field. He heard it when he got dropped off. That's why he stopped in front of the car. I think that's when he heard the voice. For Terrence, because Ray's like, "Oh, you did look at my paper. You did see what I was writing," and it's like, I don't think he did. He heard something.
Yeah, something.
With the door lock, I think the first instance of closing the door doesn't need to be just telling the guy to leave. I think the second instance where Ray's actually like holding the door open and everything, then he should have locked it before Ray just like peeks his head in with an unlocked door.
Yeah, you should have absolutely locked it. He has a crazy guy there.
Yeah, so I'll go with you on the second instance.
I'm in agreement, yeah. What was it? And my point's God damn it.
It's a very comical opening, though, of Terrence's character. When he goes, "You're from the 60s," and takes pesticide and squirts it at him.
that was a bit funny, yeah.
Peace, love, dope. Now get the hell out of here.
That was pretty funny. Brinks, how do you feel about them doing this whole box of blue hats and the blue hats thing?
That was a sad story.
They put a lot of focus on it, but it didn't really yield in anything. Should that have come back in some fashion?
I
could
think it could have.
little Artie, Arnie, or, no, not Artie.
Archie.
What was his name? Archie.
Archie
Should little
Moonlight
Archie
Graham.
have had a blue hat on while he was hitchhiking?
I think that
No.
would have
No,
helped,
the hat-
but
The hat wasn't for Archie, was it? The hat is for a girl he fancied and never gave. That's why he had so many
Yeah,
hats.
I'm saying having it come back in some fashion. It was for his wife, right?
Yeah, I think it would have been cool if when Ray met up with him in the time travel where he like noticed the umbrella to catch him and he's like, "You're Moonlight Graham," if he was carrying a box with a hat in it that he left in his office. I think that would have been more touching to go along with that for a connection. But just the story of it, I think, is good and saddening. And also to his character. Also, that feels like it's not bad to me, but it's definitely a tone shift part where when Terrence and Ray are in that town, it turns into a detective bit, trying to track down Graham.
yeah, I actually appreciated Terrence sleuthing. I think that was my point that I was going to bring up. It was just nice to see him like do his job because he also questions his purpose here, and I'm still not clear about what that purpose is. It's I do appreciate the fact that now that he's committed to going on this journey, he's actually like actively going out and asking questions of people and figuring that stuff out as much as he can of it anyway.
Yeah, and it makes sense with Terrence.
And that's also why he worries. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's also why he worries when he gets really worried when he realizes people notice he's missing.
Got so distracted. A questionable filming decision that I caught was when when Ray goes to the past or whatever. Well, I'll just stick with past. We seem to mostly agree that was a past thing and not a
Time
ghost
travel.
world.
Yeah.
Yes, that's where I lean.
So when he goes to the past, the camera starts focused on a cafe window, Amy's cafe, and then focuses to Ray. Why the focus on Amy's cafe? It has no relevance. It doesn't tie it to the 40s. Or not 40s. 40s. Where did I get that? From 72. So I don't understand the focus point.
I don't know.
Because the Nixon thing made sense, establishing the year. The sticker on the license plate established the year. Godfather, it did a lot to establish the year they're in. But Amy's Cafe had nothing on it.
I mean, with the start when he's coming into the frame, or like as soon as he leaves.
He walks in and the camera's just lined up with Amy's Cafe in the center of the frame in focus. Then it goes out of focus and onto Ray once he walks into frame.
He walks by.
So there's no reason to focus on Amy's Cafe.
I guess I'm in agreement. Yeah, I think it's just a start to the scene, but it doesn't have significance of explaining a past jump. Unless it's just a historical thing of the town or something I'm missing significantly with Amy's Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, my history knowledge does not include Amy's Cafe, so I can't help you.
That's also a pretty generic name of something, so
I used to know
it wasn't brought up by anyone in doing the detective work, right? No one said like Graham frequented Amy's Cafe or anything.
Yeah. I do remember a Mimi's Cafe growing up. Had some amazing muffins, but I never heard of an Amy's Cafe. It's pretty generic, so I don't know if it's a chain or if it's just a mom and pop
All
shop.
I know is Amy's Chili, but don't think it comes from a cafe.
I kind of.
Sorry, Crimson. To answer your question, I don't know. It is a little odd.
Ryder, you're about to say something?
Yeah, I have a question that I've hinted at several times. what is Terrence's purpose in the film? Because he asks
Hey,
aloud what
what
his
a
purpose
good
is.
question. To die, I guess.
Because if his purpose was to die, I don't think he needed to be on this journey. If his purpose was to give the monologue of like him embracing it's just very. I don't understand
The history of baseball.
the history
Does
of the baseball
Terrence-
being constant.
Does Terrence meet by like the end of his story the baseball dream he had that Ray tells him?
About the interview or whatever that he gave about playing with the Red Sox or something like that.
Or
Yeah.
seeing the Red Sox play? I don't know.
Okay, because when he
Because
tells
I don't
Terrence
remember. I
that,
don't
he
remember
goes
the
like,
details of that dream specifically.
Yeah, he's like, I don't even remember thinking of that. Which could play into is like, is that just something the voices is telling Ray?
Well, no, he explicitly says that he lied to Ray at the end. Like he does
Yeah.
remember that, but he saw Ray was crazy, so that's why he wasn't telling the truth with it.
That's true.
Well,
So-
even if we're assuming he
but if that
fulfills
dream's
his
met.
dream, even if that fulfills his dream, that doesn't really merit his presence in the film either.
But he fulfills his dream at the field, hence Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
That's a really long, lame stretch. I know. I'm
Yes.
sorry for all those face palming and groaning.
But
I think Terrence. I know it's hard to say. I think Terrence still holds more merit over Moonlight Graham of the film.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think he's
I agree
removable.
with that.
Yeah, I'm not making the argument that he's removable. I'm just asking what his purpose is as a character in the film.
Well, he also helps get more out of Ray in connection to his father.
Yeah, no. Again, I think I'm asking. I'm taking it too literally of his presence in the film. I mean, more like what changed. Like he didn't know what his purpose was until he started giving the monologue, where it seems like he suddenly had a purpose. So I'm curious as to what changed between that and the talk in the car, other than seeing a bunch of dead people playing baseball, which, granted, you could bring about some specific light show changes, but I
think the voice is one thing.
You think he hears the voice actively?
Yes, where he stops in front of the car and brings up Moonlight.
Yeah,
I
assumed he heard it. I assumed he heard it at the ball game. He was just playing it off.
Oh, okay. I saw it as he didn't, because when they're like, "Let's leave this has nothing to do with you. I'm good when you are," and he's like, "Yeah, let's leave now." Like he doesn't want to do anything with Ray anymore.
Yeah, but on the ride home, he is questioning Ray. Like, you're hearing voices again, or she's trying to probe Ray. Like, there's something you're not telling me. All that to me is that he clearly heard the voice. He just isn't like, or at least he's heard it since the ball game. He just hasn't.
Doesn't believe in it. Could have been someone in the crowd.
He's just like in denial. So that's why he's trying to get Ray to talk about it more. If that makes sense, like he wants to validate.
Yeah.
What he believed he heard, but he's not sure about.
I guess Ray is then just a good anchor for Terrence to believe in what he's hearing as well.
Yeah, but I mean that's how that scene read to me. Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, overall, the purpose.
Yeah.
What is his purpose to him? Because he goes, like I said, between the scene where he says, I know what everybody's purpose here is except for mine. Then we have a monologue, and then he chooses to die. So I'm lost as to what his purpose is still, or like what he decided was his purpose.
It might have been he got the passion to write again, because that was the whole talk he had with Ray. He's like, I'm going to write about Shoeless Joe Jackson in Iowa.
Iowa, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it could just be his passion to write he got back from it.
So he gets his passion to write just before he dies.
If we are going with the he does die.
if we're going with the fact he does die.
It doesn't sound like he thinks he's going to die, but
yeah,
evidence points to death.
Yeah, guess I can go with that. I'm also content with him giving that he doesn't know of a purpose he has.
Yeah, like I'm content with him also knowing his purpose, but it's just such a 180 dramatic change that he feels he has purpose enough to give an impassioned monologue about baseball being the constant in the ever changing landscape of America. So when you're giving a monologue, typically that implies you have purpose, you have found it, unless your monologue is explicitly about a lack of purpose.
Is that before or after he says people will come?
The monologue is after he says that. It's like that's mixed
After,
into the
okay.
monologue.
I think that could, because with Karen saying it as well, like, you know, daddy, people will come kind of thing, and then Terrence says it, to me that was the voice is talking to them to give to Ray, you know, people will come. So I don't know how much of Terrence's monologue afterwards is Terrence speaking, or the voice, not the voice using Terrence to speak to Ray outwardly, but the voice having a conversation with Terrence, or things that we don't know are portrayed of the voice connected to Terrence at all throughout the film. Just what he portrays to Ray about himself to get to that point. I don't know if it's entirely 100% straight Terrence's talk.
I can buy that it's the voice, but I also, if he's finding his passion to write, I don't want to take that potential away from him, that Karen inspired him to say this vicariously. Just like this, what he came off with off the cuff as a writer.
Yeah, I don't think it was through Karen at all. To me, Karen didn't have something to. What you're saying is the voice told Karen, like, people will come, and Terrence heard Karen say people will come. That's why he says it. I see it as the voice told both of them separately, people will come, to help kind of convince Ray against Mark.
To be fair, I don't see it any particular way. I was just curious as to, because I can go multiple ways with it, so I was just curious to get your thoughts on it. You've been quite.
I don't
You've
know
been
why the voice couldn't just tell Ray people will come, because he's been listening to the voice the whole time.
Because it's a sense of temptation. And
doesn't matter.
I think it's a belief in the faith. If he was just told by the voice people will come, it's more to believe the voice because everything he's been doing, the voice has been turning out some way. Being that the voice is nothing, the players aren't telling Ray to do anything. They're just staring at him. Everything's on his shoulders, which I think is more into a sense of faith on him to either choose to sell the farm to Mark and the lawyers and everything, or to keep with the field.
I get the point of the line. It's the fact that they used the kid, Karen, and Terrence to deliver the line instead of just the voice telling him. Because everything he's done up to this point has been on faith. Building the baseball field, going out to find Terrence and Graham. That's all been faith. We don't see him really question his faith, because every time he does, the faith proves itself to be true. So there's no reason to doubt what the voice would say.
I think that's the point of it. Is there more doubt to give to Karen and Terrence saying it? Because neither one of them can really go into belief for Ray that the voice is talking to them or through them. It could just be their own words. Like, Ray could just see it as Karen is just saying that because she likes the field and the ball players, and Terrence is just repeating after Karen, which is what Ryder just gave an example of. And the voice has no presence to it that Ray can see.
That's going to tie back into what? That's going to tie back into ultimately what the voice is.
I know, but I think that hands more doubt onto Ray to decide whether to sell or not.
Yeah, that's why he's not getting the message himself, right?
If he just got the message directly, like people will come from the voice, I think it's a strong, like, no, I'm not signing the papers. The voice told me.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I think I see what you're saying, Springs.
He's saying the voice is testing his resolve.
Yeah, it would be testing his belief, right? Because at this point, the voice has been true enough up to this point, and now he has to act without the voice directing him. But others are acting, presumably either the voice or inspired by something to say something on behalf of it that it's ultimately his choice now to act on belief or faith. That would be the test, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, right, Springs? Yeah.
Yeah, and through Ray's ears, hearing it from Karen and Terrence is just them. It's not the voice itself. That's why there's such hesitation to, coming to a decision.
All right.
I do think if the voice just said, "Hey, people will come," he'll just take the papers, shred it up, and be like, "Oh, voice told me, I'm good." Then again, it's probably the most clear and least cryptic thing the voice has ever said.
Yeah. I don't like the ending of this. The Mark pushing, incidentally, Karen. I smiled. I didn't laugh out loud, but I laughed in my head at it. It was so amusing. It felt so artificial.
So forced.
Let's chuck some drama in here. It was laughable.
Yeah, I did do a face slap when that happened. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Why? This felt so unnecessary. Yeah, you said
that was the whole purpose of Graham, essentially.
Yeah, that was for Graham's character.
And I think they put too much time on Graham anyways.
Agreed.
What he provides into this story.
I agree with that. Look, if anyone else saved Karen, then Graham was not needed. Anyone could have been like, "Oh, she's choking." Boom, done. If Graham stayed as a kid, then that would have just been like, "Oh, they fulfilled his dream for him. This is what he wanted." Him turning back into old man is like, "Oh yeah, that's what he chose in life." Became a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt very, very contrived, that whole scene. I was so confused because it was also very oddly shot. Like, I'm like, oh, she fell, that sucks. And then they realize she's choking, and I'm like, oh, that's not at all what I thought was happening. Thought she just landed on her head.
You think it would have been...
Yeah, I thought she hit her head, yeah. The whole choke thing was weird.
Stronger in a sense or anything to Graham's character if Ray looked to him saying, "You're a doctor, help her"?
I don't think that would make things better or worse.
It would have been an addition.
It
would have been an interesting addition to...
Ray knows he's a doctor, and that would have pressured Graham to step outside the gravel line.
I mean, he looked at him.
Yeah, but obviously Graham pushes through the crowd first and stuff like that. I can see that working. I'm not against that as an idea.
But that pushes it more towards Ray than Graham's own choice.
But then Ray would have had a little more guilt in that farewell.
Ray would have had more guilt in that farewell.
Broke your dream.
But also, it would have reinforced Graham's original stance. It's like, I don't need to go with you. I've lived a good life, So it could have done something for Graham's character in the sense of, like, he's there now playing the game with them, but this reinforces why he left or why he felt it was important that he lived a good life afterwards.
Yeah, and that's why all the ball players are saying goodbye to Graham. It's like, you want to be a doctor, and that's your path of life. You're not a ball player.
You did a great job, rookie, or whatever Joe's action said. It was very.
Got to get back to his wife. You might think he has a girlfriend.
So, follow-up question to this scene: why can Mark now suddenly see them?
He's a believer now because he saw the old man come out of nowhere.
That's true.
I assume that's his perspective. He just saw an old man appear out of thin air, and then he just walked back onto the field, and all the baseballers were there.
Well, not necessarily out of thin air, just from behind him. Like they're all looking down at Karen. He just walked up to them. I don't think Mark actually saw him appear out of nowhere.
That would have been a funny shot.
Yeah, just his old guy.
I kind of saw it that way.
But it's a ghost, so.
Because he had, from his perspective, he had Ray looking out at the empty field, and Annie running to get a doctor, and then Ray's like, "No, wait, stop, let her die." So I would imagine that Mark would then look to see what Ray's looking at. I would think that'd be a pretty normal human thing to do.
Yeah, I assume he just saw an old man appear out of thin air.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then directly interact physically with Karen. And I think this is the only instance we have someone leaving the border, the boundary, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Of
that's a
of a
ghost.
leaving the field.
Yeah. But like this is leaving the boundary, like out towards the house, which they wouldn't cross earlier.
Yeah, that's why I brought up earlier. What would have happened to Shoeless Joe Jackson if he crossed the line?
Yeah, and I whipped up a crazy theory based off of my limited knowledge of what happens to
Either
people.
be 90 when he's done with baseball, or he'll be 5 before he got into baseball. Maybe.
It's a part of Ray I did not like at all in this was the why do you go? What do I get out of it? What do I get out of it? Bugged me so much.
It was very
What are
selfish
you
of him at this
talking
point.
about? You get out of this. You got to meet your hero, your father's hero. Everything here was for you. What are you talking about? What do you get out of it? That irritated me.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
Is
for
that
me.
character breaking? He seems
It's
with the flow. He appreciates everything.
It definitely
boom,
approaches
selfish moment.
It definitely approaches it, considering this is right after one of the ghosts just saved his daughter. It's definitely approaching character breaking. I'm not sure I'm on the character breaking side of that yet, but it's definitely, man, we skirted up to the fucking line here. It's very out of place.
What do I get out of it?
He never cared what he got out of it. At least,
He just
not
believed in
until he just believed in it.
He didn't have expectations of seeing his father. He didn't seem to care throughout the whole film. Like, I wonder what's in that field. That doesn't come up. It's not set up. This freak out of what do I get? It's not set up.
I think a little it is, because it's taking his time away from, he's doing everything for the field because it's an unbelievable thing for ghosts and, his hero, Shoeless Joe Jackson, to be present and everything. And the voice is telling him, ease the pain. So he goes to Terrence Mann, and then the whole thing with Moonlight Graham. And he just witnessed Moonlight Graham turning an old man and going back in the cornfield and disappearing. And now he's being told, Terrence, come with us. You will also disappear. So all this work for months, possibly, weeks on end, that Ray's been doing is now just disappearing. It's gone. All this time he's been doing is now just dying. So it's like, is he going to be doing a task like this again? Where'd all that time go? Why not?
Shoeless Joe Jackson said he'd come back, that they would come back and play.
They were coming back tomorrow. Yeah. So they're not leaving.
This is not ending. Yeah.
Yeah, but is it like a shepherd thing? Like, is he just going out and finding people? And with the people will come situation, it's like people will come with no reason, like the whole monologue Terrence gives. Why couldn't that just be Terrence in the first place? Why didn't Terrence just get a message to come on his own?
Well, that once again goes to what the heck the motive of this voice is.
Yeah, so I think it's just those emotions and like time wasted thought can express the frustration out of Ray in the moment.
I'm not gonna disagree that he's not in a great state of mind, but it's still, the selfish bit just felt a little too much. Like there could be a little more build up to it in conversation. Like why him and not me? And then they could say something like, "You're not ready," and he's like, "But I've done all this. Well, what do I need to do to be ready? Like, I want to see it too." And then they can build up into that, maybe the frustration of, how he did all this for them without any expectation, but now he has an expectation. Like, there is a way to build to that, but it's just not here.
Yeah, I mean, it could be played with like, you told me to do all this. You told me to, if I build it, he will come. And he could even argue like, that's you, Shoeless Justin. Like, you're the he because I built it and you showed up. And then like, eases pain. Terrence is happy now and everything. And then Shoeless Joe could just respond with, I didn't tell you to do any of that. Or that wasn't me.
Yeah, that could help lend into the reveal as well, so it feels less hollow, which would be nice.
Oh my God, am I writing the script for him?
In a good way. You're doing a good job.
That's not something I do.
You're doing a good job. It's okay. It happens to all of us. Do we have?
So Crimson, with that, I think the selfishness is, in my eyes, fine. Could be better.
It comes down to a similar thing I had with Annie that I brought up, with her lack of expression when it comes to her situation.
Mhm.
I feel the same way with him, where Annie's telling him bankruptcy, we're having financial issues. Mark tells him this stuff as well, and he doesn't really bat an eye most of the time to it. He's like, let me focus on the voice stuff. So I don't feel like they really built that up. Your example of it being, he feels like he's been pushing in this direction without getting anything out of it because of all the problems he's added to his life by following it, because he doesn't really acknowledge the problems of his life until the end here.
Yeah, I mean, I would even be okay if like his daughter nearly dying gave him a really big reality check, but they don't really play that off either as a potential option as to why he's acting this way. So I'm more inclined to agree with you and Kristen on this one than I was with the Annie stuff, because like I said, I kind of explained my position on the writing for Annie.
Mhm.
So there's, yeah, like I said, I think I'm okay with this being a conclusion if this was built up. Like I'm fine with him reaching this point of, because it feels like it's exasperation. If it was coming from that angle, like I've done everything, you know, up to get to this point. Why am I being rejected now? Like if it was worked up to that, I would have been okay with it. But I'm in agreement that it just kind of came out of nowhere. So
Yeah, you never hear him complain to Terrence like, man, it's really hard to listen to this voice because I'm tearing my family apart here financially. We don't hear him really talk about his financial issues. It's all through Annie, pretty much. And I think if they did that with him, it would bolster the what do I get out of it? Because I've sacrificed a lot of stuff here. I don't think they built that up.
um, yeah, I don't think I have any more to say on this. So
Yeah.
if you got anything left to say on it, Springs.
I do not.
um,
Matter of fact, looking at my notes, I got nothing else.
I think my last note is I really appreciated. As light as it was, I did like the talk with the dad. Um, there is at least a nod to something there that, but I think it's mostly subjective because I think it kind of explained my problems with it. The reveal itself I have issues with, but I like their interactions. I think, um, and I also like Terrence reacting, like as he's reaching out to the field and he's clearly interacting with something because he's having like fun with it, and and James Orgel is such a great actor. So it was kind of,
Yeah, he has like a little. I can see like childlike joy in
yeah,
him toying with it.
yeah. He's got his, his want to write back. He's poking at, like it feels like he's interacting with something even though we can't see it. I think it was a very well done like scene of him looking back and smiling and stuff like that.
Gosh, it sucks that he doesn't like baseball. He portrays it so well.
I know. I really feel bad for the actor. He does a good job, but yeah, it sucks he doesn't like baseball. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
Any last notes out of you, Crimson?
Yes, I have two last ones. They're not long talking points. I like the ghost umpire. I just find it amusing that there's just a ghost umpire in the first place. He's so passionate about his life being an umpire that he came back from the dead to be an umpire again.
What's wrong with that?
It's funny. I find that funny. I don't have a problem with it. But because the baseball players make sense to me. It's like, where's the ghost janitor? Where's the guy that sets up the chalk lines on the baseball field? Where's Ghost him?
Wow.
I want to see that guy.
Sorry for all you passionate umpires out there. Crimson thinks you're on the same lines as janitorial staff.
Why are you saying janitors in a derogatory sense? Sorry to any janitors out there that Sprinks thinks you're lesser than
Oh.
an empire. So
Ooh, good riposte. Good riposte. Keep going.
Crimson, where's the peanut salesman come up? Where are they listed? Where's the come get your hot dog? Where are they on your tier list?
great point. Why isn't there a ghost of them?
Where's
They're
the Cracker
passionate,
Jack
I
stand,
imagine.
man?
God, this film's a freaking negative 2. Where's our representation of the ball game? But no, that was pretty much it. The Empire was funny to me. And then where did my other point go? Oh, Terrence, while on the bleachers, is reading a baseball encyclopedia. That seemed so random to me. It's like, look,
reading
we're
a
in a
baseball
baseball
encyclopedia?
movie. He's reading a baseball encyclopedia.
That's a problem. I have a problem with that. I thought he was looking at a journal and stuff like that, like he was trying to
No.
research or read something.
Baseball encyclopedia.
He could be reading about the players, but I would think they would show that he's reading about the players because that would have been something. But no, if it's just a basic encyclopedia, I got a fucking problem with that.
Yeah, seemed a little heavy on the baseball. It would have been nice if it was a journal and he was writing in his journal or something.
Oh,
but
okay. For a
didn't
split
do that.
second, I thought you just meant the overall film is a little heavy on the baseball.
No, the fact that they had to throw in a baseball encyclopedia to Terrence, that seemed unnecessary.
Yeah,
An
you're right.
unneeded
The
addition.
baseball encyclopedia.
Yeah. It's in bold writing. It's a big book. Popped out to me quickly.
1 hour, 23 minutes, 47 seconds.
That would make my last point.
Well,
yeah, we
in
kind of
that
already
regard,
we already kind of covered the cars arriving. So yeah, that is literally the end of
Oh,
my
yeah.
points as well.
with that, that's been the entirety of Field of Dreams. Definitely new structure, I would say. I don't know what to call it, but that was definitely a new type of. That was not popcorn. And I think could be better for it.
Yeah, we kind of went
Anywho,
by characters. That was fun.
I know it was a big question and answer thing.
It's kind of like
really enjoyed
Men.
it.
Or I think it was like our Men coverage.
Oh, kind of, yeah. Okay, with that, we'll go to reviews and summaries. Let us begin with Crimson.
Okay. I will be starting with my subjective. But first, I want to ask both of you, what do you think my subjective is?
That's a
Throwing in
great
a
way to
wrench.
do this. Great way. Well, before we recorded today, I told Crimson, I don't know what your scores are, but I think that Crimson's objective is higher than his subjective. That's what I think. I think I'm going to say that Crimson's subjective is a 6. That's my guess.
Right. Ryder?
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't think about it until like the moment you questioned me about it. So,
How do I feel about this film?
That's why I gave a response. Give you a couple more seconds.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it did buy me enough time. Oh, what do I think your subjective is?
Ooh, what a nice little game.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
trying to.
After hours of covering,
Yeah,
have you
I'm
gotten
trying.
enough off of me?
You had a lot of world building issues. You had one scene that we both loved, and you had, but I don't know, like, you were having issues with the actors, like, and their portrayal of things. So I don't know how much that's blending into your
But was
subjective.
it still enjoyable?
Yeah.
Or did it actually detract?
I am going to settle on a 5, I think, for your subjective, and I think I'm just basing this off of some of our other content that I've done with you. That would be my guess, but I would be. I'm kind of in the boat with Springs that I think your objective would be higher, but at this point I actually
However-
don't know because we brought up a lot of problems. So
Yeah, however, Crimson brought up the question to begin with without giving it, so I think it's going to be surprising either way.
yeah, it's gonna be surprising either way.
The answer is 4.5. That is what I've come down to here.
Ooh, that was
ooh,
close.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
not one I'd likely see again. I didn't really get emotional as Sprinks did. Once Sprinks posted that in the React timestamp, it's like, ooh, there's gonna be some deep stuff. I might like this.
Well, Crimson,
Unfortunately,
you have a little more
it
of a
didn't grab
positive
me.
father figure in your life, so
Well, the React timestamp was with no context, so going into it, I was
That's
expecting something. It did not grab me emotionally. Ray as a character, I did not enjoy. Just overall, nothing fun. Nothing fun. And I was thinking, is it a 4? And like Lost in Translation was my immediate comparison because that's a recent 4 I gave. I'm like,
So he
no,
went
I
with
would rather watch
comparison
this.
route.
Well, no, I gave it a 4.5. Then I'm like, what's close to it? So I looked at my stuff. I'm like, okay, Lost Translation's a 4. Is that fair? And it was fair. I think this is more enjoyable. So the number was first. I did not compare then give a number. So 4.5 subjectively. Objectively, yeah, I had a lot of problems with this film. I brought up a lot of them. The whole ending was muttered with problems. Being with ghosts, how they operate. Could they have sold to Mark and have Mark just keep the property fine, or just pay off the problems they have, even just temporarily, because the tickets would presumably save them, because we don't even know at the end if they sold enough to save the farm. It's open-ended. But there was workarounds to where the ticket sales didn't have to be the end. Mark could have been the end, but they didn't do that, even though it made sense in the moment. Graham as a character, in air quotes, because with how much screen time is dedicated to Graham, he's not much of a character, honestly. He liked to play baseball, but his passion for helping others and becoming a doctor was way more had more passion behind it for him. And that's pretty much his character. He loved his wife, and that's it. His little version, young version of him, we discussed how that could just be cut and tweak a little bit of the car to where Terrence just questions Ray, which would be within Terrence's character to ask questions. So I think that would still work out. The choking scene is laughable. They're like, okay, we need to have some problems. What happens? Oh, Mark picks up the girl and she falls over. I'm like, okay. Oh, and she's also choking. So it wasn't just the fall. She choked.
I have a question for you, real quick, Crimson. Is it like, did it come across to you as like CW injected drama?
No, not quite like that. I was thinking like Lifetime movie.
Okay.
Or Hallmark movie.
Got it.
Which I think is a step above CW to me in terms of artificial drama.
There we go. Fair enough. This is late CW, not
CW
Buffy
is the
CW.
bottom of the yes, current day CW. Or recent, I guess. That could be like
Gotham Knights.
over 10 years ago.
If you want recent CW.
Batwoman, Gotham Knights, stuff like that. I haven't seen Legends, but that got a few seasons. But back to the film. I do think Annie, written on the script-wise, she does make enough points to where she is butting heads in air quotes. But the way it's portrayed through the actress, I don't think she acted poorly, but I don't think she acted properly for what the character's supposed to convey, which is stress. She's losing her house, her farm. They're broke. I didn't get that conveyed through her acting. The time travel bit comes out of nowhere and I don't think is necessary, which throws in more wrenches for Ray not changing his views towards his father, which I talked heavily towards. Even with the didn't even play catch part, Ryder and I talked about how that changes happened already. That wasn't a change that happened within the film, which they could have done that, but they shot themselves in the foot with the funeral bit. And because Ray doesn't change, at least to me, his father could have just been introduced in the beginning, and we didn't need any of this ghost back baseball stuff. it completely makes the film irrelevant to itself. So I'm sure there's some other stuff, but I'll leave some meat on the bone. Objectively, it did go down. I had it at a 6. It is at a 5.
Ooh,
The
above
camera's
4.5.
average. It's fine. Huh?
Above a 4.5.
Yes, you were both correct. My objective ended up higher.
Alrighty. Well, with that, let us go to Ryder next.
Alrighty. I'll go with my subjective first. My take on this film was I had a bit of a higher expectation, I guess, of it because I've been hearing so much about it, in the sense of like it's a very famous baseball movie. That being said, it was kind of a letdown for me. I didn't enjoy the main character Ray all that much. I think Kevin Costner does fine, even though I don't like Kevin Costner as an actor all that much. But then again, I haven't seen like his quote unquote best work, so maybe my mind will be changed. I really, really loved Annie. She had a lot of my favorite scenes. I'm gonna have to revisit her on the acting bit. That does fall under my subjective, so I'm just gonna shrug at that right now. It was the plot felt very unnatural to me. So it just like the pacing felt unnatural to me in a very weird way. Like I just kind of was sitting there like wondering what the point of things were constantly. And if I'm doing that, that means your film hasn't really done a great job of what's the best way to put this? Hasn't really good job of immersing me. So I do think this is I still feel like this is an okay film, but my subjective was bouncing between a 4 and a 5. Unironically, I've settled on a 5. I would watch this again, but I'd have to be kind of talked into it. It's not going to be my first choice to go to for a baseball movie. So yeah. Objective. Let's see. I guess I'll start with the plot. I've talked about it. My issue with it is it feels very contrived. It comes across that way. Just because the voice is guiding Ray from one area to the next, and it felt like it contrived things like Moonlight Graham in order to help facilitate conversations that necessarily didn't need to have. They didn't necessarily need to have Moonlight Graham there for any reason other than to save his daughter at the end. And that ties into character stuff of what I think of Moonlight Graham. I just found the plot to be it works, it's functional, but I have a lot of issues with how it functions. It just goes from one thing to the next. I'm phrasing this really badly, but that's just kind of how I felt about the plot and how I see the plot. The world building is awful. We kind of took it to town. They're not really consistent with the rules of the ghost. Moonlight Graham threw a wrench in there for sure. I think the bits of world building I liked was more about the place in history, which lends to why Annie has my favorite scene, and also Terrence's family think he's missing. Like those are just natural things that would happen in the world, which I quite liked those bits. But by and large, those are very small compared to everything else that's going on, being how the fields work, how the voices work, when the other characters start to hear the voice, whether it's just an inspiration to them or it's just a physical presence enough to test Graham about specific things. The movie's very unclear about all that, and the rules do contradict, and that lends to some major damage being done in the world building. Moonlight Graham was already touched on. I kind of think while he has a justifiable place in the script, there's really nothing to him beyond that. I'm not going to repeat Crimson's words, but that's essentially what that was. I like Shoeless's Joe Jackson's kind of like slow opening up to Ray, because it's a very, very tense and awkward scene when you first meet him, but he's more jovial. Jovial is not the right word, but he's more open in quotes when and during later times when they meet and talk. Like he starts smiling a little bit more, like he's getting used to the feel of the game a little more, and it's making him happier. I was very confused about Terrence, which is why I asked the question at the end. I don't think he's removable, as I said, but I think I just was lended to a lot of confusion with regards to him. I like that he's bitter about his writing. I like that he's defensive about his writing too. I find it fascinating that he's willing to drop everything to go on this adventure with Ray because he heard the voice. I feel like the film did an okay job moving me into a place where I thought that was believable. I like that he's somewhat self-aware, as he doesn't know what his purpose is in the story, other than that he's clearly searching for something to inspire him again. I like that he can see all the players. I like that his reactions to it. I like that he lied to Ray about the interview, which kind of led to his state of thought at the time about how he thought Ray was just some crazy dude, so didn't tell him the whole truth. I like that he sleuths. I like that he is willing to kind of test people on their positions. Like he does test Ray and his position towards his father, and I think that's a good thing that he does. I guess I'm gonna go to Annie. Annie, I think, is my favorite character of the film. In terms of writing, she's got all of the. She's got all the things that make her more than just a one-dimensional supportive wife, which I'm very grateful for, because I think it would have, if those scenes didn't exist, I probably would have been in agreement with Crimson in the sense of, yeah, like she's too supportive. Like there's no worry or something like that. So I like that she has limits. She is getting worried. And then, like I said, the acting thing is just something I'm going to have to rewatch, because that's not what I was paying attention to. I was paying attention to the writing. But she has my favorite scene in the film too, so that I can't really take that away from her. She's very spirited, opinionated, good public speaker. She's anti-fascist. She's born out of the 60s. She's very patient with Ray too, which is something that I consider to be a very admirable quality. And ultimately, she's really down to earth and always is she wants to tell Ray the truth, but also doesn't want to ruin things for him. Those little neat things that really just come across to her being a very kind and caring, supportive woman to her husband. And there's a lot to like about Annie in that sense. Unfortunately, over the course of this podcast, no one really was able to talk me out of Ray being a Gary Stu, so I'm just going to label him as that.
I agree.
Yeah, the world just kind of bends to him. He doesn't really grow or change, but everybody else the world works for Ray and ultimately in support of him, ultimately reuniting with his father. Nothing overly terrible happens to him. The closest we get to him not being a Gary Stu is Terrence's dislike of him, which ultimately Terrence is proved wrong, because that's what happens around Gary Stu's and Ray Stu's, is other characters eventually grow to like them for one reason or another. He's ostracized for hearing voices. He never really forgave his father for getting old. I like all the dialogue that Ray's involved in. I just don't like Kevin Costner's acting. He's, for what he is as a tool, I think he's well written, but it comes with the stain of being a Gary Stu, and there's that little break or nudge towards a break at the end that I didn't really like. And he's willing to go to a lot of lengths on the prospect of belief, which is an interesting facet to his character. I do like that. I just wish there was more to... I just wish it didn't feel so forced. It felt very mechanical. That's probably my biggest issue with Ray. That being said, my favorite scenes with him are his conversations with Annie when he's talking about his father, his conversations with Terrence when he's talking about his father. Those were the important scenes that they needed to nail, and I think they did. But that doesn't really take away from the overall damage of quality done to his character. So my objective also went down, just not as much as Crimson. It was at a 5.5. It just went down to a 5.
Alrighty. Well, that saves me for last. Hopefully, let me not reiterate a bunch of stuff. Let me start with my objective. My objective is 7.5. It did not move at all. I think the camera work is good. There's parts of it I really liked. Lighting, a lot of natural lighting, a couple instances of artificial that were caught, so it was still fine overall. There's a little down parts. The writing, I think, very felt chunks. Like there's the whole beginning chunk of building the field, the whole chunk of Terrence Mann, the chunk of Moonlight Graham, and then not even a chunk, but it's like how do we try to leave a mint on this pillow? And it's like, oh, my mint's just an empty wrapper. So it kind of feels that way. I wouldn't say the pacing's off. The pacing's flows well of one area to the next, but it doesn't. It feels like this big detective riddle game with the voice, which I do enjoy. I find that kind of fun, kind of like the mystery, especially for not seeing it in a long time. Like, ooh, where is this going next? What's going to happen next? Which I did like. I do wish the father thing was a little stronger, but they did touch on it in bits of the writing of Ray, and I think the ending was weak. Could have been stronger. I don't know how close this is. I don't think it's very close to the book that this is based off of, which I think is actually called Shoeless Joe in Iowa, maybe? I think that's actually the book it's called based on. Anyway, acting I think is good overall for everyone. Kevin Costner's acting to me is fine. Not a lot of emotion needed, but there's excitement, there's anger, there's curiosity, confusion. I think he portrays that fine. I think I'm blanking on the name. That sucks.
Annie?
No.
Terrence?
Darth Vader. Oh my God! Someone gag me with
Terrence.
Edward James
Well,
Olmos.
Terrence
Earl
Mann.
Jones.
Thank you.
Oh wait,
Gosh,
Edward
Earl
James
Jones.
Olmos. The fuck? Oh right, wrong person. Wrong one. Wrong e-name. Go on.
No, Jones. That's who I'm thinking. Gosh, that was embarrassing. I think he's a great job as Terrence Mann, and the character he portrays in this. The monologue at the end, I think, is very strong for him. I do like the fact that he's just along for the ride because he hears things and knows things of his own, but the perspective is all on Ray, so we got like side bits of what he's demonstrating through his character, of his acting, of like following along with like the curiosity of himself. And at the end, he's like, I know everyone else's purpose because it's betrayed, but I don't know what mine is. And he gives, I think that's still like the purpose of his character of not knowing but going along with the adventure. And I think it's if it's connection to the dream he made earlier about baseball, and if that connects to the end when he goes in the corn, I think that matches it up finally. I do really like Annie. I think she's a very supportive wife and doesn't question a lot of the craziness that Ray's speaking, which I feel like a lot of wives or spouses would portray in films. Maybe of modernly or normally, of like, you're acting crazy, maybe you should go see someone about this. I do believe you, honey, I do, but maybe you should see a doctor, that kind of talk. And Annie's very like whimsical and up with it, and it's like, okay, well, if you think this is great, let's give it a shot, let's try it out, see where it goes. She's very supportive, and I really, really enjoy that about her character. And her acting's great. The whole PTA meeting, I think, is really where she thrives there. The movie's got comedy bits that I don't think are over the top or out of the way. The whole gun in the pocket thing, I think, is very funny, and it works well. So I like that. What am I not touching on in a film? Probably a lot of things, but with that, yeah, 7.5 solidify. So it's not great, but I think it's overall good. Subjectively, I give it a 7. I do enjoy it. I do like the whole mystery aspect of it. I do like Moonlight Graham, but he gives questions to the point of like, is he necessary? And I don't think he is necessary for the initial plot of Ray and his dad. But having him present of like following another riddle of a clue, like go the distance, to that, I think helps like this mystery game, even though it's not the exact puzzle piece Bray needs or what the story's given. And I slightly feel that could be just a page to screen situation where it's like a big character in the book and they're like, oh, we got to give him screen time, and it just did not match up well. Possibly, I'm not fully aware on that. But I find it enjoyable. I'd watch it again. Yeah.
Whew. All right. Well, that was for
Now,
the
Crimson
dreams.
did think my scores were going to be identical, so they were
Yeah,
close.
that was only 0.5 off.
Fair enough.
Did you
My
think it
score.
was gonna
Turns
give
out
us
my
time?
score was identical. Well, I guess with that, gentlemen, shall I read us out, or do we got any lingering questions or thoughts?
I was expecting that. I was expecting a double 7.5. That's what I was
Oh,
expecting.
double 7.5. Ooh. Well, no, you didn't. So, yeah, I guess you can read us out, Ryder.
All right. Thank you for listening, audience, whether it be on Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. And if you're on our visual side of things, be it YouTube or Rumble, please feel free to comment and tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a geeky writer,
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Springs.
and we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.